She got a nigga, but don't even post it. Where you go? Son. She got a nigga, but don't even post it. I pull up with the runs and the potion. Niggas no shooter who keep him some motion. Put a play on a play on a play. Put a bay on a bay on a bay. Screaming free out my bodies upstate. Screaming free out my niggas downtown too. I be high as fuck making LeBron moves. She got a nigga, but don't even post it. I pull up with the runs and the potion. Niggas no shooter who keep him some motion. Put a play on a play on a play. Put a bay on a bay on a bay. Screaming free out my bodies upstate. Screaming free out my bodies downtown too. I be high as fuck making LeBron moves. Should be bad like in no time. Hit a C like it's go time. My bitches in the game like the old line. Hey, and when I come down, you get no shine. Scissors on the backseat like a little kid. Tub been gone for a little minute. Ain't back and forth, I just post a pic with a bankroll, pounds in the mix. I can't parking like pimp. Hey, serving coffee shop him. Hey, got you walking around still. Hey, I'll let cash on him. Then put a bag on the cracker, but you put a bag on him. Hey, for black on black violence. Hey, let's go smash on them. I just paid my rent late on the block near Kimbe. Chopper got a little shake, hit the jerk like Ben J. Money calling me today, I'ma pick up every time. Bro just brought a whole bottle, gon' distribute every line. Shawty came with her ass like the city had dying. Wi-Fi around the trap, this shit like a airline. Shawty came with her ass like the city had dying. Wi-Fi around the trap, this shit like an airline. She got a nigga, but don't even post it. I pull up with the runs and the potion. Niggas no shooter who keep him some motion. Put a play on a play on a play. Put a bay on a bay on a bay. Screaming free out my bodies upstate. Screaming free out my niggas downtown too. I be high as fuck making LeBron moves. She got a nigga, but don't even post it. I pull up with the runs and the potion. Niggas no shooter who keep him some motion. Put a play on a play on a play. Put a bay on a bay on a bay. Screaming.
All right, James Cassel. Goody.
Hey, what's good? You can hear me?
Sir, yes, sir.
Hey, what's good with it, man? I appreciate you letting me on, man.
You know it's all good, man. You know it's all good. Let's go on.
I say go and check out the show. What's up? Y'all can hear me?
Still, I'm gonna post the link on my Facebook in just a second. But go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, brother.
Hey, what's up, people? My name is James Cassel. I'm out of Houston, Texas. You know what I'm saying? I'm a deist actually, but I do believe that there's a lot of truth in the biblical narrative. I believe there's a lot of truth when we look at it from a oral tradition perspective instead of just looking at it as a religious text. I think we should look at it in the same way that the scholars look at any oral tradition, whether it's African or any other indigenous people's oral tradition. And when we look at it in that manner, I think that we find that there's a lot of truth there. So that's why when you hit me up about the whole DNA model, I was like, yeah, I can go ahead, come on and show it how I came up with that, you know, what methodology I use so the people can go ahead, cross-examine it, hate it or love it, whatever they want to do with it. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact. That's a fact. So H Town in the goddamn building. You know,
Already.
I'm north side. You know what I'm talking about?
Southside dead in.
Already, man. South side still holding, huh?
Already.
I'm goddamn ready. All right, man. So when we get into damn, I'm looking for my lighter this whole time. It's up here. This shit crazy. All right, man. So when we get to debates, you know what I'm saying? I think my first time seeing you was your debate with Pan. How long you been debating?
Man, I've been debating, you know, on and off for almost a decade. But as far as like really, really debating like this, probably like in the last 5 years or so. But I've always been, you know, debating in the background, but nothing really just on Facebook, like on YouTube and all that like that. You know what I'm saying?
Overstood, overstood. What's your record? We'll just everybody got a record. They keep
Uh,
score with their record.
yeah. Right now I'm sitting at 5-2. I lost to Jashub in the Source Debate League, and then according to the judges, you know what I'm saying, I lost the Pan during the debate over there on Paradigm Shit.
Who is some of your wins? That's your losses. Who is some of the people you beat?
Oh man, shoot, man. Let's see. I beat
You got,
Don Bird.
you
If people
got some
know
big
about,
fish. You got some big fish in that bag.
yeah, I beat up on. I won't say beat up on. I won against Don Bird. You know what I'm saying. For those who know him, he big in the evangelist circles. You know what I'm saying, debating. Uh, King Self took an L to me surprisingly on
Uh oh.
does Moses exist? He took an L to me on that, man. That was about 2-3 years ago. Uh, who else?
Man, it's crazy. I had King Seth on yesterday.
Yeah, that's my man's too, man. That's my man's. He came down here kicking with us in H Time. Then me, him, and Jashub had went to the tank. Not the tank fight. Who was that? The Earl Spence fight up in Dallas and stuff. So that's my man's, man. King Self, cool as shit. We don't agree, on the religious stuff, but when we together, we don't even talk religion. We just be hanging, kicking it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
All that religious talk be internet stuff. That ain't what we doing in real life. You feel me?
It's out the window.
Yeah, that don't matter. We just trying, kick it, get to know it, have a good time. That's what it's about.
Overstood. Overstood.
And
Um.
then, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, no, you can finish.
I was just gonna say, but I've had some nice run-ins that's been, live with people like LaRon, who was real big in the Christian evangelist circle, Kevin G, who was a real good intellectual brother. So I've run into a lot of people behind the scenes. I've had a little couple back and forths with people, but not too big, nothing too major. You know, I'm familiar with all, most of the big wigs from back in the day, Captain Tazariak. We've had our little back and forth, but nothing major. We agree more than we disagree.
You got Captain Tazuriak head on the wall.
Nah. We just discussions we done had. Like I said, we agree more than we disagree. You know what I'm saying? It's just he's real hardcore on the Israelite stuff. I just feel like, there's other ways and methods of going about it. I think we disagree just on methodology more than anything. Uh, let's see. Garfield, you know what I'm saying? I done had run-ins with Garfield a lot, you know what I'm saying? Like when I first got out here, that was kind of like my nemesis guy. And I always give him credit because he always pushed me to come at it from more of a methodological angle than the just religious angle, because they had all the answers for the religious angles. So it pushed me to go more scholastic in my studies than it was to be just, the Bible says type stuff before I moved into more of a deism position.
Overstood. Overstood. Have you debated any Christians?
Yeah, man, I debated Hemi on the Trinity on JJ channel. LaRon was a Christian, Kevin G's a Christian that I have debated.
You beat
So I've
you
had
beat, you beat him.
man, yeah, I beat Hemi, man. Hemi believe in that Trinity, man, and even the biblical scholars will say that the Trinity was something that was developed later. It ain't part of the original, Christian corpus. You know what I'm saying? That's something that the Roman Christians came up with, not the original Christians. And the debate was over, was it originally, part of the biblical context, or was it something added later?
Gotcha. So usually when we come up with something, it's a reason behind us creating something. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We are either trying to solve a problem or we trying to improve our daily life.
Yeah.
So when you was coming up with the James Cassel method, um, what was your reasoning behind even trying to tap into science?
Again, like I said, I was dealing with the guys. Like I said, like Garfield, I run into, Unc a little bit off and on. We've had and stuff like that, and they would always push for scholarly answers. not for, you know, religious answers, because they don't accept the Bible. So it's hard to come to people and talk to them who don't accept the Bible, quoting the Bible, right? So it was like, man, so I got to come up with a new thing. If they going scholarly, then I got to match that and go scholarly. So I was like, man, when it came to looking at the biblical table of nations, I was like, I got to either be able to come up with a scholarly perspective on it, because I see myself as a man of truth, or I gotta abandon, you know what I'm saying, abandon it and say, hey, this is just pure, you know, false, you know, just made up to explain things. So I was like, hey, first thing I gotta do is I gotta look in this archaeological record, you know what I'm saying, and see if there's anything that could even be close to what the Bible is describing as this flood, right? So I looked at the last ice age and was like, okay, well, if they are describing, you know, the last ice age, but, you know, they don't have, you know, the terminology or whatever, they're gonna remember it as, you know, a great flood, because it's involving water that kind of covered the whole most of the earth, right? That's what they're gonna remember. Or if it's some type of, you know, runoff from the melting of those ice caps or something like that, they're gonna remember it as some type of flood that took place. The second thing I needed to look for was a human bottleneck event that's at the same time, because the Bible, according to what the scriptures were saying, that all humanity other than Noah and his three sons were wiped off the face of the planet. So I was like, okay, well, then it needs to be a human bottlenecking event attached to this. And anyone who knows about the last ice age know that a majority of humans were wiped out, and other archaic humans like the Neanderthal, Denisovians, and possibly other archaic humans that were around at the time, they were wiped out during the same time. So I was like, okay, I found my bottlenecking event. The next major thing I needed to look for is the paternal forefathers to be three haplogroups that came, major haplogroups that gave rise to the others. So that's how I end up coming with, for Ham, haplogroup A and B, uh, for Shem, haplogroup DE. When I do the presentation or part of it, I can go a little bit more into that, or why I choose it that way. And then for Japheth, which was the one I initially started with, I found haplogroup CF was the forefather of most of the European nations and some of the Asian countries that didn't disperse that way. And that was pretty much how I came up with the foundation to build upon to make the model.
All right, all right. From watching some of your videos, it seemed like you're very scientifically literate, and usually people they'll come to the outright conclusion that they know science and religion don't mix. Before you came up with the James Cassel method, was you scientifically literate?
Yeah, you know, I went to college and all that good stuff. So, and I've always been good in math and science in high school, throughout school. So it wasn't very hard for me to catch on to what, you know, what's going on. I mean, a lot of us are able to read, and long as you're able to critically think, you can read these articles that the scholars put out, because they put them out for everybody to read, and they try to make them in as layman as they possibly can. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it's gonna have the scientific terminology. You're gonna have to look up terms and stuff like that. But long as you're willing to put in the work, it ain't hard to, you know, figure out what's going on, look at the studies, look at all the artifacts and stuff like that, look at the chronology that's laid out with it, and then start coming up with methodologies from that. And that reminds me of another part. See, coming into this, it's hard to, you know, if you look at it as for an exact dating method, like what we typically do, we look for, all right, circa 2100 BCE, that's when this artifact was made, blah, 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 blah. But when you get into more ancient stuff, it gets a little bit harder because we don't have as much artifacts and things like that. So what I did is I used the scientific method known as relative dating. That's when you, instead of looking for exact dates, you look at the events that happen in the archaeological record and you line those events up. And then once you line up those events, it helps you come up with a picture where you can use, the exact dating method to describe what you're talking about, but you didn't, all of your dates may not line up with what the scholars are saying those exact dates are due to the methodology you use.
All right, all right. Um, you on your laptop right now?
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
Yeah. Let's get a look at this James Cassel method.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. All right, this right here is pretty much the methodology I use to show that there is validity to the genetic table of nations, which makes it one of the oldest true oral traditions we have to record today, because it makes it above 100,000 years old. Uh, this right here comes from the uh, academic, I guess, discipline of oral tradition studies, right? Where they use historical anthropology, which combines method of history, anthropology, linguistics, and archaeology to construct past events using oral narrative or cultural practices, often used in African historiography to integrate indigenous knowledge systems. African historiography, the study of how African history is written, with a strong emphasis on indigenous sources, especially oral traditions. Proponents in the works of Toyin Falola, who I'm going to mention today, Toyin Falola, and Jan Van Sina, who that Jan Van Sina is pretty much the guy who engineered and pioneered the methodology for using these studies. Uh, Historical anthropology combines methods of history, anthropology, linguistics, archaeology to construct past events using oral narratives and cultural practices. I already said that part. Ethnohistory merges ethnographic and historical methods to analyze societies using oral tradition, material culture, colonial records, and mythology, especially useful in studying non-literate or partially literate societies. And a lot of times when we're talking about oral traditions and these ancient traditions, these were pre-literate traditions that came down. So it's real important that if we're going to look at these, we look at it from the perspective of pre-literate societies and not the perspective of literate societies like we are today. Also, you can see a lot of emphasis is put on looking at it from the indigenous perspective and not the common academic perspective we have today, which was pioneered through European minds. Folklore studies focuses on oral literature, performance, and tradition knowledge systems, intersects with literary studies, religion, and cultural anthropology. So if you can see, it is an take to looking at this. You can't just go to say, hey,
You there, James? All right, there my boy go.
narratives overlaps with sociology, psychology, and history, right? This right here to the right is Toyin Falola. He's a historian from Lagos, Nigeria, and he teaches at the University of Texas, African Studies at the University of Texas. One of his most prominent publications is called Decolonializing African Knowledge, autoethnography, which autoethnography is just ethnography from the indigenous perspective. Like autobiography is written by the people, by the person themselves. Autoethnography is ethnography from the people themselves. And African epistemologies published in Cambridge University Press in 2022. And in this work, he employs autoethnography to explore African knowledge system, emphasizing the importance of indigenous perspectives in understanding African histories and cultures. He challenges Eurocentric narratives and advocates for recognition of oral traditions as valid historical sources. And I agree with him because if these are histories of pre-literate people, they're going to have a different form of keeping their history than we do today. They're going to keep it through cultural practices, cultural dances, cultural festivals, songs. You know, it ain't going to be like a game of telephone where you just pass a message around the room. Well, we know if once you teach people songs and you pass a song around the room, pretty much everybody's going to know and memorize the song. So this is the type of methods that, you know, ancient peoples use in order to keep the history of their people. That means we're not going to be able to go and look at exact datings or things like that in order to find what they're talking about. What we're going to have to do is like what I was saying with relative dating. We're going to have to look throughout the archaeological record and see where these events are taking place and are
Hey,
they. Oh,
yo,
what's up?
anytime we challenging Eurocentric narratives, I'm with it. God damn it. All right, you can
Hey,
keep going.
and yeah, that's all I said, and that was the approach I came up to when creating the model, right? That do we just take it from the Eurocentric perspective of looking at it, which we will never be able to. They will always say it's false. They'll always say it's just a mythology from the people, because we know throughout history what they've done is they come in, conquered indigenous people, and destroyed their narratives and destroyed their history, destroyed their writings if they had any. So the first thing we want to do is look at it from the indigenous perspective themselves, not the perspectives of conquerors that don't respect it. You know what I'm saying? But Falola also emphasized the importance of reclaiming African narratives by valuing indigenous oral histories. And anyone who knows my perspective and the perspective of a lot of other more religious Israelites, they would say that these are a quote unquote African people as we describe them today, that came up with this biblical tradition. And the genetic evidence shows that there was an African component to the sub-Saharan African component to ancient Israelite populations. Um, Toyin Falola underscores his views on oral traditions are not merely supplementary, but are foundational to African historical perspectives. He emphasizes, like I said, the importance of reclaiming these narratives and highlights the multifaceted role of oral literature in maintaining and transmitting cultural values and histories, because that's what pretty much the mainly the Genesis portions of the Bible is about transmitting cultural values and histories, right? So we have to go back to uh, academics who actually value these and see what their approaches is. He advocates for recognizing the authority of oral sources and the elders who preserve them, which is the griots or priests, rabbis, whatever you want to call them. All right, this right here gets more into, you know, my approach. When I built the model to address the traditions of my ancestors, anybody who knows, not only do I think that African Americans have a claim to ancient Israelite perspectives, I also have, I guess, Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry as well. So either way you look at it, you know what I'm saying? This is the traditions of my ancestors from my perspective. The traditions of our ancestors and find where it coincides with the archaeological records. We then update our model to reflect the modern scientific findings based on, you know, the Genesis Table of Nations. So using the Table of Nations in combinations with genetic data, we see if we can identify common ancestral Y haplogroups for the origins of these peoples, which in this context would be the European peoples, who first settled in the regions in accordance with the findings of modern science. Because we know that the biblical narrative tells us that the sons of Japheth, which would be the focus of this section, were the first peoples to inhabit Europe. So what we would do if we're going to bring science to it is we got to go look at the ancient specimens dug up of ancient Europeans, see what their haplogroups is, and see if they go back to a common ancestor. And I told you why I took the approach. I told you why I used the last glacial maximum or the last ice age for it. because we needed a global catastrophe dealing with water where it bottlenecks the human and animal populations and wipes out other humans like the Neanderthals, the Denisovians, and the migration patterns need to align with the Genesis Table of Nations, which would need to show a common ancestor for ancient Europeans, right? The haplogroup I propose, I'm going to say it now, is haplogroup CF. Haplogroup CF is a macro haplogroup that gave rise to haplogroup C, of course, and F and all the lineages from F. F is the biggest uh, phylogenetic tree there is. The name Japheth means, or Yapatha means Yah enlarges or makes large. So from a haplogroup perspective, even it shows that Japheth would inhabit the largest haplogroup. I'll show that at the end. But here, if we look at in Belgium, about 35,000 years ago, so you can see I'm not one of those 6,000 year people. You know what I'm saying? I believe that the earth is much more ancient than that. And what oral traditions do is they don't try to update us on exact datings. What they want to do is memorize the events that took place. So when there's a major global catastrophe that wipes out a lot of mankind, they're going to create a story that encapsulate these events. And I believe that by showing that most Europeans go to one macro haplogroup, it shows validity to the biblical narrative, because it's showing that, you know, all of these people did descend from one lineage, right? And that lineage is from a biblical perspective encapsulated in Noah's son Japheth. So in the Goyet caves in Belgium 35,000 years ago, we get a basal C 1A, right? This is from the upper Paleolithic Europeans, right? So this is from the source, the genetic history of Ice Age Europe. I'm going to use this source pretty much throughout this section of it because it has pretty much all the ancient specimens that we get out of Europe. And if you look here to the right, you see right here up here in Upper Europe, this is where the Goyet is right here. On the next one, we got basal C1b, which is from Oblast, Russia, 37,000 years ago. And this is from Koskinsky 14. This Koskinsky 14 genome represents early evidence for the separation of Europeans and East Asian lineages, because when we deal with the East Asian lineages, a lot of them descend from F lineages on the haplogroup. So this right here represents the separation from C and F lineages, pretty much, and East Asian lineages. It is found to have a close relationship to Malta boy from 24,000 years ago of the Southeast Siberian ancient North Eurasians. That's a ancient culture that's used to, you know, pretty much encapsulate and show the separation between the different ways of living of ancient Europeans. And the later Mesolithic hunter-gatherers of Europe and Western Siberia, as well as with the basal populations ancestral to early European farmers, but not to East Asians, right? And again, these are just, I'm going through this quick just to show a bunch of haplogroups that they go back to ancient Europe to validate the CF hypothesis, right? And I'm just going to focus on the right side of the screen here. And it says haplogroup G2A has been identified in Neolithic human remains in Europe, dating between 5,000 and 3,000 BCE. And I'm going to skip ahead real quick, but I'm going to come back because I want to show the actual phylogenetic tree if I have it in this one. I don't know. Let me see if I can grab it out another one of them. I want to show the phylogenetic tree real quick. Where is it? I know I got it in one of these presentations. Forget it. I'll just pull it up real quick then. I think it's important to show the phylogenetic tree of Y haplogroup. That way people can visualize what I'm talking about and not just be hearing me go over it and yell it out real quick. All right, cool. Let's blow that up. All right, if you can see the phylogenetic tree right here, I'll be focusing on this branch right. I thought I could blow it up. That made it worse. Hold on. It focuses on this branch right here, the male phylogenetic tree, where you will have A20 up here. Then you have mutation BT, then CT, and then you have the branching of DE, which I will have as Shim, and CF, which is the focal point of right now, which would be Japheth. And then that branches to C and F. And let me see if I can find one more detailed version of it to give y'all a better idea. Here we go, right here. All right, if we look at it, we can see here's the CF branch, but it encompasses, if you can see, all from here, from C all the way over to here. So all of these haplogroups descend from macro haplogroup CF. And I just wanted to show that real quick so people can visualize what I'm talking about and not just, have me running over different locations and haplogroups. All right. Right here we have Cheddar Man of the British Isles and ancient Britain, of course. The genetic markers suggest that he probably had green or blue eyes. He was lactose intolerant, which means they couldn't drink milk. Dark, curly, or wavy hair, and dark to black skin. And this was in ancient Europe. Cheddar Man's Y haplogroup belonged to haplogroup I2A1. So this gives us haplogroup I. This right here is from population replacement in early Neolithic Britain, which pretty much that paper was showing that R1b came in and replaced all of these people who carried the high haplogroup like Cheddar Man. Then we have the Eastern hunter-gatherers male buried at Samara around 5600 BCE, and that would be this little reddish location right here. And they carried haplogroup R1b1. The Eastern hunter-gatherers are attested to about 75% of ancient North Eurasian descent and have contributed significantly to the ancestry of Western hunter-gatherers. During the Neolithic, Eastern hunter-gatherers of the Pontic Capson Steppe created the Yamnaya culture, which is the culture that is real ancient, famous culture that pretty much was the predecessors to the Europeans that spread it across Western Europe, which gave us our modern European R1b branches today. This is from the paper called The Phylogenetic Geographic Structure of Y Haplogroup R1a. This right here is the Malta boy that I mentioned earlier in Siberia 24,000 years ago, and that gave rise to the basal lineage R haplogroup. And this is from the supplemental information of the Upper Paleolithic Siberian genome, reveals dual ancestry of Native Americans because Native Americans descend from Q, which I'll get into here in a minute. Ushima man in Siberia was a fossil named for the Ushima district of Siberia, where it had been discovered and belongs to Y haplogroup K2A, which also again descends from haplogroup F, which goes back to macro haplogroup CF, and more closely related to modern Eastern Asian and Oceanians and modern people living in Western Eurasian population. Oceanians like the indigenous peoples of places like the Philippines, Samoans, Tongan peoples, different peoples like that you will find in the Pacific Isles. And this is from the oldest human genome reveals when the ancestors had sex with Neanderthals from Science magazine in 2014. The ancient Northern Eurasians, Fontava Gora II, which is another site in Siberia, about 12 to 13,000 years ago. This individual was also closely related to Mount Alta boy. AG2, which is the name of the specimen, belongs to a now rare Y haplogroup Q1A1. Also belong to QF746 and QNWT01, which are Native American lineages. This is pretty much is used to validate, show, and prove that Native Americans actually descend from ancient Europeans that either crossed the land bridge or used some type of ancient canoes in order to get over to the Americas and populate the Americas. And this is from the Genetic History of Ice Age Europe, which was the paper I pretty much used throughout the majority of this. Ancient North Siberians, Yana RSH. This is from Siberia 31,000 years ago. Two unrelated males. They belong to parahaplogroup P1, and that's ancestral to Q and R, which R is ancestral to R1b. Me as an African American, I'm one of the African Americans that have European paternal ancestry. So my ancestors go back to R1b, which paternal ancestor would be P1, which shows the connection and the common ancestry of R1b and are Western Europeans and Native Americans. They're more closely related to each other than we are related to Native Americans. The population history of northeastern Siberia since the Paleocene from Nature Magazine, volume 570. And that right there pretty much sums up my portion on ancient Europeans. Again, if we go to the phylogenetic tree, as I pulled it up, you can see that all of those go back to F, which goes back to CF. And this is how I came to the conclusion that CF has to represent Japheth. So it wasn't like I came to it with a predetermined conclusion and worked in order to try to, validate my predetermined conclusion. Now, what I did was I actually went and looked at the specimens, seen what the evidence was from the specimens, and from that paper, I think it had 29 male specimens, and out of all the 29 male specimens, 27 of the male specimens from ancient Europe went back to haplogroup CF, macro haplogroup CF. So that actually gave me what the haplogroup was that was the paternal ancestors to all Europeans. And from the biblical perspective, or the biblical oral tradition, or the Israelite oral tradition, it would be encompassed in the person they call Japheth, right? That's who they use in order to keep this oral tradition of this one lineage, well, this one of three lineages that came through this quote unquote flood or last ice age, according to science. And then on the next one, we'll get into this right here will be using the genetic table of nations to show that about the house of Shem, right? And again, this is the model based on Genesis 10 tables of nations, using the last glacial maximum or the last ice age as the flood, using the migration patterns of the people that migrated to the location mentioned in the Hebraic text. So far, I've already shown that the CF lineages were first to migrate across the pre-Neolithic Europe, which designates them, according to the biblical narrative, as the sons of Japheth. I'll expound on the J lineages here in this one, but that also includes haplogroup J, right? We also have established, well, I haven't done that yet, so I'll save that for later. All right, I didn't mean to do that. Let's move into the presentation. I'm not really gonna go into everything I did in the presentation because I really just want to get to hit the nail on the head with my points, right here. And I keep moving out when I get the spot I want to go to. All right. We all are common with the out of Africa theory that came out that all of us know of, that has haplogroups C, F, D, and E migrating out of Africa as separate haplogroups. What I did was I went and studied to see if, studied how these models will come together, to see what competing models they had. And I came to the determination that I felt the competing model, which said that, CT came out of Africa, and then CT branched off to C, DE, and CF as the more plausible theory. So that's the theory that I went with, and I used this right here in order to, from my, which was from my studies that showed me that that was the better theory to go with, based on the more recent findings we have in genetics, right? A similar trend we observe in macro haplogroup R, and this is for mitochondrial DNA, not the Y haplogroups that I'm using, but it's important that I use this in order to validate the Y haplogroups, because a lot of these ancient haplogroups have pairs they ran into, like, husband and wife pairs, quote unquote. Um, Thus, we confirm that macrohaplogroup M and N indicate major southern and northern expansion, respectively, of modern humans, but in the opposite sense we had predicted previously, like with the theories I was talking about before with the typical out of Africa. Studies show, based on Y chromosome sequences, also suggest Southeastern Asia as an early center of human expansions. If one accepts that basal L3 lineages, basal L3 is the lineage that gave rise to not only European lineages, but a lot of sub-Saharan African lineages, like my female haplogroup, or my mitochondrial haplogroup goes back to this L3 lineage. Mine's L3F1B1 is my haplogroup, but it goes back to this L3 lineage. So not only does African lineages come from that, but also European lineages come from L3. And that is real important in this because it helps me show who the sons of Shem should be, according to, biblical narrative being compiled with the genetic data and archaeological information. If one accepts that basal L3 lineages evolved independently in Southeast Asia and not in Africa or nearby borders of African continent, where the remaining L3 lineages expanded, one is confronted with the question of where the basal trunk of L3 evolved, a gravitating midpoint between Eastern Asia and Southeast Asia would situate the origin of L3 in Inner Asia or Central Asia, with possible opposite direction expansion back to Africa and forward to Eastern Asia. This possibility has been modeled along with other options by others obtaining the highest likelihood value among competing models. However, it has not received the attention it deserves. The parallelism of the early back to Africa scenario of mitochondrial haplogroups L3 with that proposed for the Y chromosome haplogroup E is striking. And that's something that scholars have seen also, that not only do they believe that L3 back migrated from a Central Asia origin, they also believe haplogroup E did as well. And there's a paper called the back migration of haplogroup E about 70,000 years ago. Is a paper that talks about that extensively. In this work, we have improved the phylogeny of some African mitochondrial L3 subclades. In addition, we have compared the frequency distribution of the younger African mitochondrial haplogroup L3 and Y chromosome haplogroup E in the main regions of the African continent. Because we remember earlier I talked about how we have to not only use genetics, we have to use archaeology, we have to use human migration patterns. We have to use all the information we can in order to falsify the narrative of whether all males today descend from these three hypothetical ancestors that the Bible talks about, right? It says Y chromosome haplogroup E is mainly in the regions of the African continent. And I think this also highlights another very important thing that I always like to talk about. We can't use modern population densities or where modern people are today in order to say where ancient peoples are. We had a real big problem with that in the early formation of these models. A lot of scholars would just be like, well, people have been in they're in this location today. They've always been in this location. Where once we start digging up these ancient samples and looking at the ancient DNA, we start to realize that, wait a minute, people have been moving all over the world, since ancient times. They weren't stuck into these little uh single locations like most scholars were saying. And this again highlights the importance of looking at the indigenous narratives, because if they looked at the indigenous narratives, a lot of these indigenous narratives talk about these people coming from the east. A lot of African people saying that their ancestors came from the east, which could be, Northeast Africa. It could be the Near East, or for some people it could be Central Asia. Like we find haplogroup D in Nigeria. It could be a back migration from Central Asia. Uh, with these data at hand, we assess the possibility of the following scenario: L3 exited from Africa as a pre-L3 lineage that evolved as basal L3 in Inner Asia, and from there it expanded, returning to Africa, as well as expanding to Southeast Asia, giving rise to African L3 branches in Eastern Africa, and the M and N L3 Eurasian branches in Southeast Asia, respectively. This model, which implies an earlier exit of modern humans out of Africa, has been tested against independent results from other disciplines. So they have tested this model and shown that this model deserves just as much attention as the typical out of Africa model that we're all familiar with. And to a lot of people, this would well, let me say this first. I have no issue, as some others do, with the first humans coming out of Africa. I believe, I don't think that the Bible or the biblical narrative or the writers would have an issue with that being the narrative as well. Adam and Eve were put outside of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden's rivers also run into Africa. We know that one of them is supposed to be the Nile River or the Gihon River. So that's part of Africa. So we should have no issue with science saying that humans came out of Africa, even if you're a biblical observer, or if you're like me, like to just look at it from a scholarly perspective and see where it's true and false, rock with what's true, and then what's false we can relegate to just part of the mythology in order to help encapsulate the traditions and pass it on to the ancestors, to their descendants. um Again, pretty much this route was pretty much showing that the southern hypothesis, but I just wanted to show that scholars are saying that it's likely that haplogroup E actually came out of Africa along with L3 and back migrated into Africa 70,000 years ago. Um, right here pretty much gets into it. As origin in Asia and return to Africa was proposed long ago for the Y chromosome African haplogroup E, this hypothesis was based on the derived state of its African YAP haplogroups 4 and 5, which is D and E. Uh, YAP is, well, I'll get into that point about the YAP insertion later. With respect to the ancestral Asian YAP haplogroup 3, which is D, the later discovery of new markers evidence that D and E were sister branches of the YAP plus positive node. Haplogroup D showed the derived status for M174, which is a mutation, and the ancestral status for M40 in Asia, whereas haplogroup E was characterized by the derived status of mutation M40 and M174 ancestral status throughout Africa. Thus, the migratory sense between continents of both haplogroups could not be assured. A few YAP positive individuals ancestral to both markers was detected in West Africa and in Tibet. So it's pretty much saying that haplogroup DE, which is an ancestral to D and E, was not only found in West Africa, but it's also found in Tibet. So we have an issue of trying to figure out, what the origin of it is. And this model pretty much that they're proposing here helps us come to some type of conclusion on that. Although assigned to the para-haplogroup DE, which I propose is what the Shim would be, the descendants of para-haplogroup DE, its ancestral state could not be confirmed. Furthermore, a new mutation, P143, united two other Eurasian group CF as brothers, and in turn, DE and CF were joined to the ancestral node defined through mutations M168 and M294, which is the proposed CT haplogroup. This right here is pretty much showing that DE and CF are considered quote unquote brother haplogroups that show common ancestry. And what separates the DE from the CF is the YAP positive node that they're talking about here earlier that's found in DE, which makes DE YAP positive. Um, the initial scenario proposed the explanation for the complicated situation was two independent migrations out of Africa occurred, one marked by D and the other marked by parahaplo by the CF pair of lineages. However, a new interpretation arose following the discovery of more than 60,000 single nucleotide variants by new generation sequences techniques. The most parsimonious interpretation of the Y chromosome phylogeny constructed with these variants is the predominant African haplogroup E arose outside the continent and back migrated to Africa. The DE split as a lower bound, and the radiation of E in Africa as an upper bound yields a time of highly coincidental with the dates estimated for the mitochondrial haplogroup L3 expansions, which is pretty much saying that when they look at the Y chromosome data and they look at the mitochondrial data, they can see that L3 and haplogroup E seems to both back migrate into Northeast Africa about 70,000 years ago, which from the way they look at it supports an East Asian split, not only between for haplogroup L3 and its descendants N and M, but also for para-haplogroup DE and the back migration of E into Africa. Furthermore, the spatial distribution of the residential Y chromosome haplogroup D in Asia is a good indicator of geographical location of the putative split. The highest frequency and distribution of D are in Tibet region, although D is also present in low incidence throughout East Asia. Two other centers with notable frequency are in Japan. The indigenous peoples of Japan carry haplogroup D. These are often known as the Anu people in Japan. They carry haplogroup D, and the Andaman Islanders people. This is an isolated island in Asia where these people look like, you would think these were Nilotic Africans, but they are actually Asian people, and they carry haplogroup D, possibly representing the edge relic areas of a wider distribution long ago. There is no native D lineages in India, decreasing a possibility that this subcontinent was the center of the DE partition or the split, which argues against the southern route. It is likely that the divergence of Y haplogroup DE occurred up to the Himalayas or in the western part of Tibet, which coincides with the hypothetical bifurcation center proposed for mitochondrial L macro haplogroups. And if you look at the chart over here to the right, it's pretty much showing the distribution of L, right? You have the pre L3, and it's some distribution over to Asia, but most of it distributed back here into West Africa with the L3 lineage, which I personally descend from on the mitochondrial side. And they're saying that the Y haplogroup also followed this. So the reason this is important is because according to the biblical narrative, Shem's descendants traveled into the Near East, or west central or Western Asia, right? So we have to find the most ancient peoples who inhabited those areas. And if the most ancient Y chromosome haplogroup, if the most ancient haplogroup that Y haplogroup that inhabited that area is a basal DE lineage, then that gives me the Y haplogroup that I need to look at as far as to represent this ancient ancestor that they call Shem, according to the biblical narrative. So again, this is not me taking the biblical narrative and trying to make it true. It's me testing the biblical narrative according to the scientific methodology and then going with whatever it gives me. Now, if the biblical narrative would have showed me that there is no common ancestor between the first peoples who inhabited Central and Western Asia, then I would have to say, hey, this is a made up narrative. This narrative has no truth to it. But since it does show me that, then I have to say there is some validity and some truth to it. And if I look at it from the way that the scholars look at ancient oral traditions and validating these ancient oral traditions, then the methodology actually validates this tradition that's found in the biblical narrative and makes it again one of the oldest traditions on the planet. Because as we can see, the haplogroups that support this go back 75,000 years ago. The event they're talking about, the last ice age, is over 100,000 years ago. So if they were able to encapsulate and keep this narrative through traditional practices, songs, the quote unquote priesthood, then I think that we need to relook at the way we look at oral traditions and the way they're kept and put a lot of respect on it, because they're able to keep real ancient traditions without writing. You know what I'm saying? And if we know how hard it is to do that, we know how intricate and how much detail and attention to detail these ancient people used in crafting these methodologies in order to keep these traditions for hundreds of thousands of years. Uh, and again, the paper that I used in order to pretty much hammer this on is the carriers of the mitochondrial DNA macro haplogroup L3 basal lineage migration back to Africa from Asia around 70,000 years ago. And again, I think that, showing that the scientific data aligns with the biblical data again shows that a lot of respect needs to be put on it, but we need to stop looking at it from, I guess, say the European narrative that was given, like Toya and Falola say. We need to look at it more from the indigenous perspective, or the ways indigenous cultures would have done that. This right here go into that YAP element I spoke about. And the reason that's very important is because this is what pretty much designates the quote unquote sons of Shem, who they are. It separates them from the other haplogroups in order for them to have this YAP mutation. Um, the human Y alu polymorphic, or the YAP element, is a particular interest in the study of human evolution due to its location in its non-recombinant region of the human Y chromosome. The frequencies of the Y chromosomes carried in the YAP insertion element vary greatly among human populations from different geographic locations. YAP insertion chromosomes appear at low frequencies in some Asian and Oceanians and Amerindian populations at a indeterminate frequency. And as far as American Indian population, that's in South America, there was some haplogroup D that was found there that they believe some people from the Pacific Islanders literally got on canoes and made it to the Americas from the Pacific Islanders. In Western Europe, because you don't find it coming in from the way that the other ones did, like haplogroup Q when it came into America. The only way it could have done that and not leave any trace or anything like that was if they came directly from the Pacific Islanders, showing that it is possible for human beings to cross across large oceans like the Pacific Ocean uh, before the Europeans ever did it, and that there's actually supporting data, at least from the Pacific Islander standpoint. Um, in Western Eurasians, but at a relatively high frequency, less than 30% in the Japanese, Tibets, and several African populations. The overall high frequency of YAP insertion chromosomes in sub-Saharan populations, and this is important because to highlight this in sub-Saharan, because if this is true, and based on the model that I've put together, and I believe that it is true and it does align with the data, then according to the biblical narrative, our ancestors as sub-Saharan Africans um, would be considered descendants of Shem. And that's very important to highlight because that's a lot of what the more religious Israelites have been arguing with people for a long time, that our ancestors' ancestry goes back to Shem, not to Ham, which is, I believe, is represented by the indigenous Africans, which I'll get to here soon because I just want to kind of hammer in the key points. And then I want to leave the floor open for y'all to question me, come at me hard with whatever y'all got, try to debunk it, whatever it is y'all want to do. The YAP insertion chromosome in the sub-Saharan African population led to the proposition that the original YAP insertion event occurred on an African Y chromosome and subsequently spread to other continents. In contrast, Hammer and Altai and Hammer hypothesis and alternate Asian origin. The lineage that acquired the YAP insertion polymorphism is divided into two subclusters: haplogroup E, found today in African and Mediterranean, and haplogroup D, found in Japan and East Asia. So it's saying that the insertion happened in, again, haplogroup parahaplogroup DE, right? So if it represents both of these lineages, D and E descend from that. So they're proposing a new location from an outside of the typical African location that we're given. And again, as the earlier scholar said, this right here deserves just as much attention and just as much respect as a narrative as a typical out of Africa narrative. That's why I don't really argue with people when they promote the out of Africa narrative, because I think they're just two competing models, right? So you can align with whichever model you choose, because I think they're both as valid as any other model. Y chromosome data on the Indian population reveal that the paternal lineages of present-day populations are predominantly derived from the original Indian gene pool rather than a recent influx. That means the most ancient Indians they find on the Indian subcontinent are still, some of them are still found there today, and not from the recent, like you have the recent R1B that came during Bronze Age invasion and the modern British invasion that's there. You have you have a lot of different haplogroups. Most of them came there during the Bronze Age. To elucidate the regional evolutionary history, we examined the YAP polymorphism in 21 Indian tribal populations. The ancestral allele of M174, found exclusively in Africa, supports an African origin of YAP insertion, but the time of the mutation events on the Asian YAP insertion chromosome gives antiquity to M174, which means that the more ancient event happened on the Asian, according to Hammer's hypothesis or theory. Our findings of the presence of YAP insertion in Northeast Asian tribes and Andaman Islanders with haplogroup D indicate that some of the M168, because what's important about this is that the Andaman Islanders are proposed to have been on that island since 60,000 years ago. So if they have this mutation, it's hard for them to say that it was in the recent African origin hypothesis, which is why I think there's a lot of validity to this hypothesis and why I adopted it over it. With haplogroup D indicates that some of the M168 chromosomes have given rise to the insertion and that M174 mutation in South Asia. The presence of basal C, the YAP insertion, and a basal F in India suggests that the Y chromosomes are well differentiated into major lineages in South Asia. And that's pretty much saying that the YAP, because you have CT, which is the father or the Y chromosome lineage that precedes CF and DE, which you have that, which gave rise to CF and DE. But what separates CF from DE is the YAP insertion, which makes it its own DE, its own lineage different. So you have CF again, which I propose is Japheth according to the biblical narrative, because it is the unified paternal Y chromosome of all ancient Europeans. And then you have DE, but the thing that separates them is the YAP mutation that's found in DE. Other than that, they would be actually identical, which is why I see why some scholars, because if anyone looks at my older presentation, I have it where they mentioned that E1B1A was found in ancient Iran. That has been overturned and said to be actually in a haplogroup J, and that's because they found that YAP, or that there was contamination, which made it appear as if it had the YAP insertion when it did not. And without the YAP insertion, J and E would look just like haplogroup A to the geneticist. That's what differentiates the two. Then they have moved towards Southeast Asian and the Andaman Islanders. Andamanese maternal links have been established through mitochondrial M31 lineage with the eastern part of India in the Rajbashi of West Bengal and the Pari Bhuya of Orissa. After reaching the southern part of East Asian, descendants of the initial dispersal led to a northward diaspora, thus peopling across all of Asia. Some of the YAP insertion chromosomes without the M74 mutation reached the Mediterranean via Central Asia and gave rise to the E lineages with mutations of M40 and M96. This E lineage back migrated to Africa through the Levant as hypothesized by Althide and Heimer. And this is the YAP insertion signature in South Asia, the Anthropology's Survey of India, from the Anthropology Survey of India. Let me see, is there anything else I want to bring out from this one before I go into the other one? Because this right here really goes into pretty much spelling out the whole entire haplogroup. I'm not really trying to give y'all details on the whole haplogroup, just kind of give y'all an idea of how I came to the model that I came to. Right here, I think this is important because, and I've come further on my studies of basal Eurasians, which you will find right here where my mouse is circling, because this right here is the Near East or Central Asia, where the sons of Shem would have gone. I believe that these basal Eurasians and what they're calling basal West Africans are the exact same populations. I think the only thing that separates these populations.
Hold up. God
What's up?
damn, man. Hold up, man. You gotta say that one more time for the people in the back that hate that they black.
I was saying that I believe that the basal Eurasians and the basal West Africans are the exact same population, one and the same.
I agree.
And that's very important because we can look and see that they have no Neanderthal ancestry, and their DNA actually dilutes Neanderthal ancestry, which is the same thing that West African DNA did. And instead of scientists proposing that they're two different population. The more parsimonious explanation is that they're the same population. And then parsimony is the same thing as arguing for Occam's razor. It means the argument with the least assumptions, right? If you have to make it two populations when it's more easily explained as one population, it's better to go with the one population. So if these basal Eurasians, which I propose again, had haplogroup E at a minimum and possibly DE, are found in this location, again, they help represent and support the biblical argument that all the descendants of these Western or Central Asian people uh, come from a common ancestor in DE. And the image in order I use to support that is How Ancient Genome Unveils Prehistory of Humans, the bulletins of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Let's see, is there anything to go into here? Now I'm going to get over into who I propose for Ham, which would be haplogroup A and haplogroup B, right? Are the Africans all really African, right? And I've already shown where I believe DE comes from, finds its origin in Asia, back migrates into Africa 70,000 years ago. And in this presentation, we will analyze the Y chromosome of peoples called African populations. We will find that many of these groups do not find their origin in Africa, but in other regions of the world. While those who are indigenous to Africa come from a different branch of the phylogenetic tree, we will separate the indigenous Africans from the more recent migrations to the continent and explore their origins, rounding it out with an exploration of their theoretical place amongst the Genesis table of nations found in Genesis chapter 10. As in the prior presentation, we'll be using the migration patterns of the peopling of the world after the last glacial maximum or the last ice age, which our ancestors kept a cultural memory of it, calling it the Great Flood. Now, it's important to say that it's a cultural memory of it because cultural memories don't require it to be exact like a written historical narrative or based on the Greeks' way of keeping it, because our modern way of writing history is based on the Greeks' way of keeping history. It's not based on that. It's based on what's known as cultural memory, where you remember elements of it, like key elements of it, and then you just encapsulate it with your cultural values and things like that, and then you'll carry it on through dance and different things like that. By exploring these migration patterns, we can better analyze and form a theory of which peoples belong to which son of Noah. So we can better narrow down to the Y chromosomes of the children of Israel or whoever we supposed to be talking about, like the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And that would fulfill the duty of Israelites in going out looking for these Israelites and bringing them, back into the fold. And this right here again is the phylogenetic tree. I've already shown haplogroup DE, which would be right here as the descendants of Shem. The rest of this would be haplogroup CF, which was here all the way over. And that would include the ancient European lineages, which would descend from who the Bible calls Japheth. So the only thing left to talk about now is haplogroups A and haplogroups B. Who are the peoples indigenous to Africa? The population structure of Africa prior to the expansion of food producers, pastoralists, and agriculturalists remains unknown. That's what it was before the paper that I used and based this on. Something else I wanted to say before this: the food producers or the pastoralists and agriculturalists. This would have actually go back to haplogroup E with the Natufians, which gave rise to agriculture and pastoralism. So that's just a little background so you know what I mean by before the expansion of the food producers, because these people expanded into Africa, brought farming into Africa.
Before them damn invaders, before the Arabs.
hey, just these invaders descend from what we would call ancient Africans. They just left out, you know what I'm saying, had a couple mutations, then came back in. You feel me? But they would be considered invaders. That's what the indigenous people would consider them. It was a war that took place between the indigenous Africans and these peoples about 13,000 years ago, which actually validate that's exactly how they seen them, as invaders to their land. Because hunters and gatherers, they follow herds, and herds go across hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles with their migrations, due to climate and different things like that. So as they follow these herds, they'll leave and come back, and these pastoralists and set up shop, start farming on they what they consider their ancient, hunting grounds. So they gonna come and go to war with them. So that did happen. So they did consider them invasions. So you're right about that.
Hey, brother James, how many more slides you got left?
I mean, I can sum this. I can sum this up in about 5 maybe slides, because I just need
All
to
right.
hit these few
All right, we
points
got
and then
we
I'm
got
good.
pseudo killers Gullah in the building. He want to ask some questions at the end.
Okay, cool. I'll make this quick then.
All right.
To reconstruct the African population structure prior to the spread of food producers, we generate new genome-wide data from 15 ancient sub-Saharan Africans, from 3 individuals from the Western Cape of South Africa, uh, 20, 2300 to 1300 years ago. We carried out shotgun sequencing for 12 individuals from East and South Central Africa. We use in solution enriched of 1.2 million single nucleotide polymorphism, or SNPs for short. These include 4 individuals from the coastal region of Kenya, Tanzania. So let's just get to the individuals in order to get to the brother. So pretty much this right here shows a list of all of these different peoples they found in South Africa and different places across Africa and East Africa, mainly. Uh, and then we're gonna look just on the right here, which is the Y haplogroups. We find in Saint Helena, South Africa, we find haplogroup A1B1 B2A, and the first 2, which are found in South Africa, pretty much show us haplogroup A being indigenous. A lot of these BTs were found to be basal Bs. So when we look in Malawari and Figara, which is in Northeast Africa, we'll find that haplogroup B exists there. And then I just want to show about the let me see if I can find this before I get to it, and then I'm good to go. I think this right here. Haplogroup E1B1A1, which is the branch of E1B1A specific to West Africa, is not indigenous to West Africa, which is a big argument that I have here. Let's see, I want to find the exact part. All right. A total of 18 human skeletons have been discovered in the Shumlaka, comprising 2 distinct burial phases. We attempt to retrieve DNA from 6 Pretorius bone samples and obtain working data from 2 individuals of the early Stone Age to Metal Age, and 2 from the late Stone Age to Metal Age. That's about 8,000 years ago and 3,000 years ago, respectively, right? Uh, all of the mitochondrial and Y chromosome haplogroups we observe at Shumlaka are associated today with sub-Saharan Africans. The 2 early in individuals carry mitochondrial haplogroup L0A, which is widespread in Africa, and the 2 later individuals carry L1C, which is found amongst both farmers and hunter-gatherers in Central and West Africa. And these are pretty much haplogroups that are aligned with the Khoisan peoples and the Pygmy peoples of West Africa. It's pretty much showing that they are the indigenous female haplogroups of West Africa, and who we will call Hamites. Let me get to, here's the Ys right here. Individual 2 SE1 and 4A have Y chromosomes from macro haplogroups B, often found in hunter gatherers of Central Africa, and the 2 of SE2 has the rare Y chromosome haplogroup A00, which is discovered in 2013. I believe there's a couple of African Americans that have A00. I don't want to put anybody on blast or nothing like that, but one brother I know well that is being seen on Sinetta a couple times have A00. Present the predictable frequencies only in Cameroon, is particular among the Umbo and the Bangwa, which are pygmy peoples in the western part of the country. And that pretty much shows that oh wait a minute, that's the map. Here's the graph that shows it, that the indigenous people of West Africa actually were haplogroup B and haplogroup A carriers, and these would be who the Bible is using to say are the Hamites, the indigenous peoples of Africa, as far as we see, whether it's Northeast Africa or Central Western Africa or South Africa, the oldest peoples we find in all of these locations descend from haplogroups A and haplogroups B, which will tell us who the Bible considers the descendants of Ham. And with that, I'll be done with the presentation portion, so y'all can ask me questions. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Hey, that was powerful, man. That shit was powerful, man. Everybody, I hope y'all got y'all blunts rolled. Hope y'all got y'all drinks. You know what I'm saying? Hope you got y'all popcorn. Man, this is Mr. James Cassel. And that was the James Cassel method. You know what I'm saying? All right, we got Gull in the building. Oh yeah, so real quick, James Cassel, appreciate you for that, man. That shit was dope. I ain't gonna cap.
Appreciate that, bro. Appreciate it.
Already. Hey, Gullah, you can unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Gullah, you got? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah,
Yeah.
Loud
it
and
was
clear,
the
brother.
presentation was nice, but there was a lot of inaccurate information. Like you can't line up no biblical narrative with no DNA at all. That's why there's a lot of errors in that whole thing. A lot of waste of time. And first of all, the basal Eurasians and basal West Africans are not the same. Africans are a mixture of archaic humans and a Tyrian culture. Basal Eurasians is something totally different. Just because they had say basal don't mean they're the same, yo. You know what I'm saying? Two, I ain't see the whole presentation, but from what I seen, a lot of shit was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't no D markers ever found in no Americas. It only stops in Asia. The only thing that like the signatures that help define the Polynesian, or you know what I'm saying, that picture that
Hey, you breaking up, Gullah?
Southern Asian population comes off a C.
All right, it sounds like he breaking up, huh, James?
Yeah, he breaking up on my end too. It ain't just you, bro. I'm just trying to let him get it all out before I respond.
Right. Hey, Gullah, you there? Gullah, you there? All right, you probably got to come out and come back in, Gullah. Probably got to come out and come back in.
Yeah, hold on, I'm gonna come back in. Hold on.
I hear you now. You must be at work or something. Yeah, at work watching watching the James Cassell method presentation. Hey, man, hey, James, you know how them pseudo killers is, man. They be in the bushes, they be under your car.
they hear well, huh?
Trunk.
They ready to jump on somebody when they feel like they being pseudo.
All right,
Hey,
Gullah, you there?
oh, go ahead, Gullah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
All right,
Can
yeah,
you hear
go
me
ahead.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, basal Eurasians and are not the same at all, bro. Basal West Africans is a mixture of a Tyrian culture from North Africa, which they were tropical people and a mixture of archaic humans a ghost time ago before Niger Congo people even got there. And if you use biblical narrative and all that, you can't even really go in deep into no A markers and no B markers. When they talking about when they in that biblical narrative, they only know that that you see in the Bible, the Middle East and the little middle parts. If anything, if it have anything, it'd be E markers, E3B, not even the oldest E, probably E3B markers. You know what I'm saying? Cushitic speakers, population that them Middle Eastern people was dealing with anyway. Them motherfuckers wouldn't know about no damn sign people, none of that shit. You know what I'm saying? And like A markers that was in North Africa, them most likely would be Nilo-Saharan people with some of the oldest groups in, what I'm saying, the North African regions around
Exactly.
the South Middle Nile. That's what I'm saying. If you ain't, that's what I told people, bro. If you ain't read Christopher Aries' book, African Civilizations, we really shouldn't be having no conversation about no DNA or no human migrations at all, bro. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? That's why it's a lot of confusion.
got
In this presentation. You know what I'm
got you.
saying? A lot of pseudo, like you even really can't use the biblical narrative at all. You know what I'm saying? When you're using DNA and human migration, you shouldn't even be using just the chromosome. What about the MT DNA?
I did.
We always skip over that. Them move around too. And you got to use the autosomal DNA as well. So do you even know what the gap associated
Do you
marker
want me
has
to
to do with?
respond to you, or you just gonna gish gallop and throw out a bunch of stuff? Because like you
I'm not
admitted.
guess guy. I
Hold
gotta
on.
see
I got
I
you. I
gotta see the
got you.
whole thing.
You already
It's
admitted
just
you
so
didn't
much
see
shit.
the whole. You
It's just so
already
much of a
admitted
so
you
much
didn't
of a
see the whole
clusterfuck. It's
presentation.
just so much of a clusterfuck to clean up.
And look,
It's
I
crazy.
know you want to
It's like a
argue, but
whole bunch
you
of
gotta
Hey,
organized.
hold up, Gullah.
like, you
Hey,
gotta let
Gullah, hold
me
up. Let
speak.
him respond to you. Let him
Yeah,
respond.
like come on, like he just want to get up here and claim everything fake. He said he admit he didn't watch the whole thing. Now, I'm gonna deal with one thing. Let me share my screen real quick to deal with one thing he said and show that he just so wrong and just want to be combative. That's his whole point in coming up here. Now anybody can see this paper right here. It's called Human Migration: Two Roads Taken. Right? America was peopled from Asia by at least the end of the last ice age, but the exact timing of the entry and composition of the source population is unclear. A new analysis of two rare mitochondrial haplogroups suggests two separate Asian migrations into the Americas, introducing simultaneous but independent Asian source populations for American colonists. Now let me get down here to D, where it speaks on haplogroup D. Right here. Haplogroup D, in contrast, is ubiquitous in the Americas south of the Arctic. While
Bro, hold
hold on,
on. Let me start with they talking about
why I can't
mitochondria
finish.
D, bro, not Y
That's fine.
chromosome,
That's
nigga. That's
fine.
what y'all niggas
That's
be
fine.
fucking up. You ain't
Bro,
talking about no Y
bro,
Hey,
chromosome D.
I
They talking
brought
about
up why.
mitochondria D.
Gullah, let him finish. Let him
Yeah,
finish.
thank you. If anybody saw in the presentation, I brought up the mitochondria when I brought up L3 and talked about how my mitochondria is L3F1B1. So I think the dude
Yeah,
just
they
wants.
come from Chaddock.
I think the
They
dude
come from
just
Chaddock people. Yeah, I know that.
okay.
I understand
All
that.
right then.
But
So
this right here,
brother, why are
they
you
not
cutting
talking
me
about no Y
off?
Hey,
chromosome
Damn,
Gullah,
right here. They
Gullah,
talking
let
bro,
him
about
let
finish.
me
Let him
finish.
mitochondria.
finish, Gullah. Let him finish.
Y'all niggas be fucking up.
So you keep claiming that, but I'm able to actually go and give sources to support what I'm saying. And if you
If
figured I
it
meant
weren't for the
if
pseudo
you
killers
Hey,
figured
hold
anyway,
up,
I
y'all
hold
meant
up,
niggas wouldn't
Gullah.
be
Let
talking
him
about no
dang,
finish. Gullah,
haplogroup
hold up. Let
nothing.
him finish.
you gonna be able.
Y'all niggas wouldn't even whisper.
I know you want to spaz out. That's what pseudo killers do. That's what every time I run into a pseudo killer, they spaz out. Look, you can disagree with me and still be respectable. You don't have to come on here and just be trying to turn it into a bunch of yelling back and forth. And like, bro, we can be respectable. Now, so what I want to do is give you since you say you didn't see the whole thing, to give you the reasoning and perspective of why I came at it that way. All right. And then you can respond to that part and we can work through it step by step if you want to. And you can point out what you disagree with, right? I started off by talking about how it's important to look at things from indigenous perspectives over looking at them from a European centric perspective. I use the professor of history, Toyin Falola, a Nigerian historian who specializes in looking at oral traditions and validating them through history, linguistics, archaeology, and my addition to it is genetics because now we have the genetic component to go with it. Do you have an issue with validating oral traditions using history, archaeology, linguistics, and genetics?
All right, Gullah, it's on you.
It depends. It depends on how you look at it. And you can't just you wrong your whole premise wrong for even coming at science talking about some European perspective and traditional perspective. Matter of fact, the consensus of the science world is diverse. They all work together. When you look at scientists, if you know scientists like I do, it ain't just no white scientists. It's African scientists, European scientists, South American scientists. All these people work together and they complement each other. When Christopher Airy worked together, he works with Dr. Soy Kenyatta on certain historical facts and DNA markers and you know what I'm saying, migration patterns. It ain't just no the European perspective and this and this. And that. Man, I don't even work like that.
That's not what I'm saying. I think you misunderstand. I'm not saying that only Europeans are doing the work because
Science, I'm just saying science
the
is
person
science
I'm
though. It ain't
actually
no
sourcing.
it ain't no black and white thing though. Y'all making it seem like that. Like
Wait a minute.
that's
Well,
not even a factor.
so does Toyin Falola, who is a professor at the University of Texas, you're saying he don't know what he's talking about when he is the one, a Nigerian man, who's saying that a lot of their
It
history
don't
is
matter
being
what it don't matter.
told.
It don't matter
Wait,
if it's
hold up. Let me.
Nigerian man or not.
Can I
It's the
finish the
information right.
point?
It's the
You
information
look.
correct. It's the data
I
correct.
know you.
I
I
gotta
know
see.
it
I gotta
hurts you
see
that
what
I'm
he's talking
actually
about.
meant using an
It ain't
African
nothing. It ain't
scholar.
nothing. It ain't nothing hurting me, bro. Stop using it. All y'all pseudo.
Okay,
It ain't hurt.
fine.
It ain't shit hurting me, bro.
Hey, look.
You the nigga that's
Why?
wrong.
So now a professor at the University of Texas is pseudo because Gullah in his
No,
feelings. Like he ain't doing this.
I don't know if he
Bruh,
is.
quit spazzing
You could
out.
be
Have a respectable
misrepresenting his
conversation.
work. Y'all niggas be misrepresenting niggas'
Oh,
work and shit.
how am
I
I?
gotta see the
Okay,
work.
okay.
Show me
Name
what
one of
he's
his
saying.
works. Name one of his
I'm
works.
telling you,
Name
show me what
one of
he's
his works.
saying, bro. I'm telling you,
Wait a
show
minute.
me what he's
You're
saying.
saying he false. Can you name one of his
I didn't say
works?
he false. I'm
One of them.
saying you false. You could be misrepresenting his work.
Okay, if you're saying I'm misrepresenting his works, name one of them and how I'm misrepresenting it.
I'm saying you. I don't know because all the shit I seen you do so
Okay,
far has been
let me name
misrepresented. That's what I'm saying.
one of
Let me
his
see what
works.
he's saying. Let me see what he's saying.
Okay, let me name one of his works. It's called Decolonializing African Knowledge, Autoethnography, and African Epistemologies. This was published by Cambridge University Press in 2022. So are you saying that he's just on a bunch of hoopla and just in his feelings because he's saying you have to decolonialize the African knowledge?
Man, I doubt he even saying that, bro. Let me see. Let me see what.
That's the name of
Show me
his
what
book.
he said. Let me see it, bro. Show me.
Wait a minute, you saying you doubt it. So if I pull up his book, will you admit that you don't even know what you're talking about?
Did you read the whole book?
Will you admit that you don't even know? I don't have to
Nah,
read
man, if
everything
he
in the
coming
book.
like
Will
that,
you
he's
admit you
pseudo.
don't know what you're
If he
talking
coming
about?
like that, he's pseudo. It don't matter what university and shit.
Wait a minute, I'm about to bring it up right now. I'm about to bring up the book right now. Hold up, this book right now. Hold up. Let me share my screen real quick. Because according to you, this book don't exist, I guess. Does this book exist, bro? Decolonializing African Knowledge, Ethnography, and African Epistemologies. This whole book is about not using a Eurocentric perspective and actually giving respect to oral traditions and how you actually use oral traditions and how you actually validate oral traditions using history, archaeology, uh linguistics, and again I add genetics because that's available to us now to look at ancient DNA. So I'm using an academic view because he's not the only one that is a proponent of this. The actual person who came up with the methodology used is a European guy. So it ain't some, oh, well, it got to be this African. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that there are scholars that are looking at these indigenous perspectives and saying, wait a minute, we got to put some respect on these oral histories and traditions.
But I don't fuck with Fowler. Like I see the scholar you talking about too. I don't fuck with Scholar. He followed that Theophile Bing and all them other pseudo Afrocentric scholars that try to be biased and shit. They don't come up straight
And
to
we
line,
got
straight up
you.
the line.
Hold on, you say Theophilo Bank is pseudo?
Yeah, the nigga pseudo linguist. The nigga pseudo as
Man,
fuck.
Gunner, come
He's pseudo as
on.
fuck, bro. That nigga said Berber language ain't African, bro. That nigga pseudo.
Gunner,
I'm my mama. He's
Gunner,
pseudo, bro. If you
Gunner, he
look up
probably
any
was
fucking source,
wrong. Hey,
any
Gunner, you
consensus,
could be
he's
wrong.
labeled as a
Gunner, you could
pseudo
be
languages,
wrong.
bro.
Hold
Y'all
up.
niggas be
You
on
could be
Sinetta
wrong.
looking up all them
Hold
scholars,
up, you
don't
blowing
read
up.
the
You
fucking
blowing
material
up.
for real.
Relax. You blowing up. You could be wrong on one thing and not be pseudo, but you could just be wrong on one topic. That don't make
Man,
you a
that
whole
nigga
pseudo.
pseudo, bro. That nigga made up the shit about the motherfucking Shango, the fucking
I support that view,
lame
Bailey,
nigga
man.
pseudo as hell.
One mistake don't make you.
All them niggas are Sorry Motel follow them niggas pseudo, bro. And them niggas ops. Fuck a Sorry Motel and all them pseudo ass languages and them niggas he follow.
So he's pseudo teaching at universities. That's your stance.
Yeah, motherfucking, yeah, he's pseudo. It don't matter if motherfuckers,
He is the
yeah, in
teacher of
Africa.
African history at no, he's at the University of Texas. He's the teacher of
It's other
African
Gunner,
African,
history.
bro.
At the
It's
University
other
of
African,
Texas.
bro. It's other African. It don't matter
Hey,
what. It
Gunner,
don't matter
you
if
couldn't
he's
even.
teaching
Hey, Gunner.
at a university.
Hey,
It's other
Gunner, you
African
couldn't even
scholars
put your
that
feet.
call him a pseudo
Hey,
too.
Gunner. Hey,
It's
Gunner,
other
you couldn't even put your feet.
Africans that
Hey,
call a nigga
Gunner.
pseudo too.
Hey, Gunner, hold up. Hey, Gunner, you couldn't even put your feet in Theophilo Banker's shoes, gang.
At all.
Man, I'll beat that nigga up, bro. You crazy? That nigga pseudo as fuck, bro. I'll come with other African scholars that don't even
Narcissism.
fuck with that nigga, bro. Ain't
Hey,
no narcissism,
look,
bro.
what
That
happens is
nigga
you
is
have a
not fuck,
clash
bro.
of views.
That nigga came up to that conference. That nigga came up to that him and motherfucking Dion came up to that conference was a dead motherfucker wrong. They turned their ass down. Even African scholars, nigga. Y'all them niggas don't even know about the damn UNESCO
Did they
conference.
do that to
It was
Toyin
other
Falola?
scholars that was saying them niggas. It was other
Did
African
they do
scholars saying
that
them
to
niggas was
Toyin
wrong.
Falola? Has anyone done that to him? No. You ain't finna find it. He's,
Yeah, because he come from that school of thought.
he's
He come from that school of thought.
look, according to who?
Bro, that's who he follow,
According to
bro. He
who?
comes out of the
Do
motherfucking
you
Diop
have his
school of
writings
thought,
that
bro.
say,
All them
hey,
niggas,
I
bro, them
come
niggas
from the school of
Afrocentric.
thought of
Fuck being Eurocentric and fuck being Afrocentric. They come up straight the middle,
that's
nigga.
what he
Not be
doing. That's why
non-biased.
he said we
Nah, he being
decolonializing
biased, bro.
and giving
He biased.
validity to not only the European methodology but to the African oral traditions. So
It ain't
the
such
issue.
thing as no
So
European
I
methodology.
got
It's
you. Hold
methodology,
on.
bro. When science, when it's
Let
come
me
to
finish what
science,
I'm
it's just
saying real
methodology,
quick.
bro.
You keep raging out. So what I'm saying is that you can give respect to both. You don't have to
Hey, hold
Look,
up. Let me say
Chat
this. Hey, hold
GPT,
up real quick. Hold up real quick. Hold
Chat
got
up.
GPT,
Hold up.
colonizing
Hold
Africa.
up. Hold up. I asked AI overview. Did Diop get anything right at UNESCO? It says yes. Sheikh Anta Diop did make significant contributions at the 1974 UNESCO conference on the relationship between Africa and ancient Egypt, and his arguments were largely supported by evidence. Diop presented evidence to support his theory that the ancient Egyptians were of African origin and that they had a distinct Negroid physical appearance. His arguments challenged the prevalent theories of the time that positioned ancient Egyptians as non-African origin, often aligning them with Caucasian or Western Asian ancestry. So Gullah, you gotta cut it out, bro. Diop.
No, I ain't cut it, bro. You using fucking overview, bro. Use
No,
Chat GPT. Fuck
showing
that
you.
overview
I'm
shit.
showing you. Them
Nah,
crackers had
overview
an
pseudo,
opinion.
bro. I'm
Hold
using
up.
Chat
I'm showing
GPT,
you.
the
Them crackers
real
had an
scientific
opinion.
shit.
Them
And it right
crackers
here
had a
it said the
hold up. You
colonizing
blowing
African
up. Hold up.
islands.
You blowing up. I'm showing you. Them crackers had an opinion about our people, and he went in there with facts and proved, nigga, nah, they African. I don't know what the fuck you talking about. Cut it out, bro.
No,
Who's you
that's what you
listening
get.
to?
That's what you
Who's
messing up
your
the narrative. There wasn't no bunch of
Stop listening to
crackers
Ngozi.
there. It was Africans
Stop
there
listening
too.
to Ngozi.
It was other
Stop
Africans there
listening
that
to
was
but they
Ngozi.
were
agreeing with that
arguing
nigga.
that
It wasn't
Stop
Egyptians
no
were
listening to Ngozi.
Europeans and Asians.
Stop listening to Ngozi.
Of course they not European. Of course they
But that's
African.
what
Yeah,
he
you got that
proved.
part right,
But
but all
that's
the
what
other
he
shit was
proved.
wrong.
That's what the conference was about, Goofy. The fuck is you talking about?
Nah, nigga, that nigga talking about some Negroid and all that other pseudo ass shit, bro. There ain't no fucking such thing as no Negroid. That's racist as fuck.
Say it's
There
outdated.
no fucking
How
such
about
thing.
say
That's
that? Say it's
outdated
outdated.
racism ass information,
But was
bro.
it outdated for his
And that
time
overview
period,
shit,
Gullah?
He
Google
went there and
overview shit
Hey,
proved
ain't no
hey,
that ain't how
Gullah,
you
was
get
it
information.
outdated for his time period? It may
he
be
went there
outdated
and
for
proved
us
the
today.
goddamn
It
point.
wasn't
You
outdated
hear
for his
Zawi
time
Hawaii
period,
say
though.
Negroid today, nigga. Fuck is you talking about?
Fuck that nigga too. That nigga don't know what he talking about either.
Making up
Boy,
shit.
these pseudo killers are rage machines, bro. It's F
Fuck that
everybody that
nigga
disagree
too.
with them.
Right,
It can't
right.
be a different in perspective. It can't be two different academic
Nah, cause
perspective classes. It's just
Zawi
don't read enough, bro.
Hawaii,
Y'all niggas don't read enough
is a
books.
whole Arab saying Negroid today.
That nigga ain't no Arab though.
Man, cut it
He's
out.
just a fucked up racist ass Egyptian.
Cut it out. Ain't no damn
man.
Egyptian. You out of
He
hey,
Arab ass, he an
we
Arab
live.
ass
You know that. You
Egyptian.
know we live, right?
Yeah, I know we fucking lied.
When you saying the stuff you saying, we starting
All
to
the
wonder,
motherfuckers.
man. You trying to discredit people that actually went up and fought to validate Africa is African. Like
They could.
now you can say
Everybody
you
ain't
disagree
perfect.
with certain
Everybody ain't gonna
perspectives.
say everything perfect.
Yeah.
They don't make them pseudo. You can't throw. Come on, Gullah.
Like even in this presentation,
Yeah,
I
that's pseudo, bro.
openly
Them
admitted
niggas are
that there
pseudo.
are
I don't
two
give a fuck.
different
Them niggas are
perspectives.
pseudo. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. Motherfucking Wolof ain't no Egyptian language. Like I said, that nigga was pseudo as fuck with that shit.
Did he mean Wolof or the predecessor language to it?
That ain't either. Only reason they connected because the fucking Wolof got Arabic in, and Arabic is in the Afro-Asiatic language family.
Okay, so
Wolof come from Lebu,
do Afro
and that come from motherfucking Senegal. That come from Atlantic Congo languages. That
got
come
you,
from no
do
fucking
Afro
Egyptian language. Got shit to do with it.
do Afro
That's Niger Congo language, nigga. That ain't Afro-Asiatic. Niggas want to be Egyptian and East African so fucking bad. Niggas don't want to be the motherfucking gorilla, motherfucking tough ass West African niggas that we is, nigga.
I think right now you just
You don't
speaking
get no
feelings.
motherfucking King Vine out no motherfucking Egyptian or no motherfucking East African weak ass niggas. We them fast twitch muscle motherfuckers.
Okay, you raised out saying all that for what? What does that prove? Based on what we saying today.
You done, Gullah? What else you disagree with the presentation?
Man, that shit, man, y'all, it don't matter anyway, cause y'all niggas believe in the Bible anyway. Y'all Bible believe, y'all Bible thumpers. Y'all put DNA with Bible shit anyway. That whole shit was fucked up. How you gonna put some DNA with the Bible? The Bible only motherfucker go back 6,000 years and shit.
That's not how oral
That shit was
traditions
fucked up
work, brother.
anyway.
That's not how oral traditions
Man,
work.
ain't no oral tradition my ass, man. Them niggas, them motherfucking dumbass Arab goat fucking niggas that know shit about no DNA.
Wait a minute, so you telling me Genesis, they just made that up out of thin air? It wasn't based on oral traditions of peoples in Western Asia?
Yeah, some Middle Eastern shit. That shit ain't no African story. It's a Middle Eastern fucking story.
Would you consider haplogroup E an African haplogroup?
Yeah, it's an African haplogroup.
Okay, well these
But
people
what the fuck they got to do with the damn Bible?
I'm about to say it right now.
The Bible don't know shit.
These people who
What the fuck they got to do with Abraham?
the first
nigga?
peoples of the
Fuck out of
Middle
here.
East to have haplogroup E.
Talk about that.
Hey, hold up. The first peoples of the
Wavy know that Bible some
Look,
bullshit.
I know you
know
hurting
some
right
bullshit
now,
with that Bible shit.
but the first peoples in the Middle East had haplogroup E, brother.
Ain't nobody hurting, bro. Ain't nobody hurting.
Hey,
If
You
you
fucking
say
up. You
haplogroup
fucking up
E,
Hey,
Fowler.
Gullah, he trying to have a conversation.
I respect Fowler them for not using the Bible. Them niggas don't use the
Hey,
Bible.
Gullah, he trying to have a conversation with.
I respect Diop for never for not using that Bible, but you using the Bible for this shit.
that's fine. I could use any oral tradition and do it. That's the point. That's why I can do it with the Bible, because I can do it with any oral tradition if I use the methodology that
that's
actual
mythology.
academics
That's
use.
mythology, bro. You might as well so you can use motherfucking Zeus and Hercules to do this shit. Out of here, man.
I could use it to show that there is a common ancestor.
You can't use it with no DNA. That's two separate things, bro.
Okay, wait a minute.
That's two
So let me
separate
ask you
things,
this.
bro.
Let me ask you this then, Gullah. If there's a claim, right, that there's a global climatic event that uses water, as in the Great Flood, and that there's a particular migration patterns of humanity that happened after that event. If we can go and show that the migration patterns took place, we have the event as well, the last ice age, which is being mentioned there, and the migration patterns after it align. I would say that that validates an oral tradition that speaks about the migration patterns of people after a great climatic event. Now, it doesn't have to be an exact dating to it, but that's what is encapsulating and keeping. That's the same thing African oral traditions do. They don't care about exact dates. They care about the event that took place and how it happened and what moral or cultural values they can get from that event. That's what they do.
Hold on. Let me read this though. This come from ChatGPT. You know what I'm saying? I say wrong. Diop. I say Diop not pseudo because he came with scientific methods, but that nigga was wrong as a motherfucker on a lot of shit and overlooked a lot of
Hey,
shit.
I appreciate that. I
Look,
appreciate that, Gunner.
it say
I appreciate that.
it say Diop. Hold on. It say Diop was not pseudoscientific, though some of his claims remain controversial, and he was a serious and pioneering scholar
Yeah,
who helped
don't play with
reshape
his
African
name. Don't
historical.
play with his name no
Yeah,
more.
For
Let's get
real.
this shit.
but he was wrong about a lot of shit. Fuck him. I
Nah,
don't give a
Neil.
fuck.
It's
This nigga,
some
Nah,
stuff
this
is
nigga
Neil.
from the motherfucker.
outdated, bro. Some stuff.
He ain't my elder. He ain't my elder. Shit, my elders are niggas I really touched, nigga. I ain't
Gullah, I
touched
got
that
a
nigga.
question though, a real question.
My elders, my grandfathers and niggas I really touched.
Got you. If
I don't call niggas. I don't call niggas. I ain't never met my elder.
got you. Can you hold him
Let me see.
accountable for information that came out after he did his work? Because that's what it seems to me.
You said what?
Because Cheikh Auntie Diop did a lot of his work in the, what, 60s?
Hold on. And it say Sheikh Anta Diop was a visionary
Hey,
scholar,
James.
but like any trailblazer, some of his
Hey,
claims were
James.
either
You asked
overstated,
Chat.
weekly
Asked.
weekly
He got on
evidence,
me for using
or have
Google
since been
Google
revised by
overview,
more recent
and he
research.
using goddamn Chat GPT.
ChatGPT is better than overview, nigga. That shit
Nigga,
overview will
What's
give
the
you any
difference?
fucking
you
thing.
went through the same method I went through to come to your conclusion. You went through the same thing, nigga.
Nah, look, hold on, look.
You
Let's say,
went
hold
through
on. What? Hold on. Look what he. Oh, look. Let's say ethnic
I
identity
could have told
Of
you he
Egypt.
wasn't pseudo, nigga.
Ancient Egyptians were
Goofy.
definitely.
I could have told
Huh?
you he wasn't pseudo.
You said what?
Why you asking
You said
a
what?
robot and you ain't asking your black brother? You ain't taking our word for it.
Man, y'all niggas don't even read for real. Let me see.
That's what you just saying. Like that's like that's crazy, bro. You just throw out claims and hope they stick, man.
Hold on. Hear the criticism, bro. It say Diop may have over hypothesized Egypt as fully
We've
quote
been
unquote
said that he
black
ain't
in a
perfect,
modern
bro.
racial sense, overlooking the diverse makeup of the Nile Valley, which included population from the Sahara, Nile Valley, and the Near East. Genetic
We
and
agree.
archaeological evidence shows Egypt was a melting pot with the influence of both Africa, West Asia, especially in later periods. It's a modern DNA analysis from mummies suggests some continuity of ancient North Africans and Near Eastern,
When they say
not
especially
purely
in later
sub-Saharan Africa.
periods, what that mean?
You said
When they
what?
say especially in later periods, what that mean?
You just
That
saying
mean new
motherfucker
people moved in,
was
right?
mixed more.
That means that yeah, new people migrated
Yeah, but
into the area, not the original people. That's what it means.
and that don't just include Africans, bro, because the E marker came from the Red Sea Hills. Them niggas
You
mixed with
talking about
Iberian
North
Maroons
Africa?
and niggas that
You
was
talking
already
about
up
North
there.
Africa right
Hey,
now?
That
mixed
shit.
with don't mean they not African. Hey,
Yeah,
wait a
but
minute.
them
If
niggas
mixed
Iberian
with mean you
Maroons.
not African, then your black ass
Iberian
ain't African
Maroons is a group of
American.
human. Hold on, bro.
They're not.
Iberian Maroons is a mixture
So
of
what?
Tyrian groups who are tropical Africans and Basal Eurasian McRibby
They
type
African,
motherfuckers.
nigga.
They
Them niggas
African
in
still, bro.
African.
By your
yeah, but the niggas got overlap.
claim, you
Them
said
niggas
E is
damn near
African.
diluted.
You said E is African,
Bro,
so don't
listen
try to
to what the
run
fuck
now.
I'm. Hold on, let me listen to what I'm saying. E wasn't there yet. I'm talking about Tyrians and Iberian Maroons.
What you mean? Our
The
Bureau
Tyrians were
Maroons
there
have
early.
haplogroup E.
Them,
What are you talking about?
no, they don't, bro.
Oh, let me pull
No,
this
they don't,
up.
bro. The Tyrians didn't have
This
that.
is crazy.
No, they don't, bro. They got it later though. I'm talking about Iberian Maroons. Yeah, they had E3B, but they get
Wait a
it
minute.
later.
What
When
you mean?
hold
What you
on,
mean?
when
Yeah,
the
they
mod,
had it. What you mean they got it later? What did they have
listen
before
what I'm
that?
saying. Let me
What they
fucking
have
finish,
before
bro.
that?
Let
Then
me
you
finish
just
what I'm
making up
saying,
shit.
bro. That's what I'm bro. Let me finish what the fuck I'm
Hey,
saying,
go
nigga.
get your big dog.
You
Go
gotta
get
put
it, Ghost.
chronology
Yeah,
to
get
it.
I'm about
somebody.
to clutch.
Hey,
Go get it, Ghost. I'm about
hey,
to clutch his
I
ass.
had this.
Bro, you gotta
Hey,
put
super
hold
wavy. I
on.
had this
You
conversation
gotta
with
put the
Ngozi.
chronology to it.
Ngozi
Bro, you
understands
gotta
the
put it in
methodology.
chronology.
This pseudo don't.
No, let me put the chronology to it, bro. Damn. Shut
Look,
the
he
fuck
just
up.
mad now.
Ah, this is
Ibero-Maurutian
based on
is a
Christopher
mixture of
Airport,
Near
nigga.
Eastern and Sub-Saharan African ancestry. Why is this pseudo lying?
Assyrians, nigga. The
It don't matter,
Assyrians.
nigga. They could
The
be
Tyrians is
presidents.
old. Bro, the Tyrians go back. Bro, listen, the Tyrian population go back 150,000 years ago. Them niggas had no fucking E. Them niggas old as fuck.
You said
Them niggas, they
Ibero-Maurutians ain't no
represent the whole.
150,000
Hold on,
years
bro. Let
ago,
me
bro. Stop
finish.
it.
Let me finish what I'm saying, dog. Bro, why you just can't let me talk?
The same reason you couldn't let nobody
The
talk.
Tyrian. No, because you don't know what the fuck you talking about. You wrong anyway for bringing that Bible shit up.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we know. Just in his feelings, bro.
yeah, nigga. You would have dead end with the Bible anyway, nigga. You talking about
Emotional
some
as
Bible,
hell. This
biblical
all
narrative.
pseudo scholars
Cam
do is
Jeff,
yell
Cam
pseudo killers.
Jeff. Nigga, you crazy as fuck.
They just
You
yell and
crazy as
spaz
fuck. You
out,
believe in Jesus,
call
nigga.
people
You
pseudo
believe in
for no
Jesus,
reason.
nigga. You think Jesus was real. You
Jesus
think
was
Jesus
a
was
real
real, nigga.
historical person.
Anyway,
What are we talking about?
man, fuck
What do
that.
you
That
so
nigga wasn't
Jesus
real,
wasn't a
nigga.
historical person now because you in your feelings?
Nigga, he was a bum. If
Hey,
he was a
let's say
fucking
he
bum,
was a
nigga.
bum. He still existed, nigga.
Anyway,
Like what the hell are we talking about?
man, some scholars don't agree with that shit.
Dude just want to argue to argue, man.
Anyway, and which Jesus, nigga, there's a whole lot of them, nigga. That's a common motherfucking
The
Jewish
one from
name.
Nazareth.
Anyway,
You saying
bro,
he ain't a
hold
historical
on,
figure?
bro. Let me finish saying what I'm saying. Hold on. The sub-Saharan African, the Tyrians or Tyrians. Them niggas was early humans, bro. They sub-Saharan, but they was early humans. They're not modern like fucking gracile modern humans. The niggas didn't have no E3E markers. The motherfucking E3B was introduced to a tier after the Tyrians and Ibero-Maurutians was already mixed up. Them niggas came up, them niggas E3B more came up through the Red Sea Hills and introduced the Amadic-like signature to it, giving them niggas Afro-Asiatic languages to North Africa, nigga.
The Assyrian culture.
Them niggas, by time the Amadic-like niggas was up, the niggas was already motherfucking mixed all up and shit.
Hey, Gulla, you already said the Tyrians had that marker later on, so we ain't even this. We good.
No, the Tyrians didn't even exist. That them niggas was already wiped out. Damn, them niggas was Ibero-Maurutian. The Ibero-Maurutians overlapped them niggas. Whoever the Tyrians was, them niggas was motherfucking already mixed all up and was Ibero-Maurutian. Them niggas was fucking overlapped and shit. By
So you don't
time them
have any
eat them,
idea.
you said what?
I'm saying you don't have any idea what the haplogroup of these people were.
Bro, a
You're just claiming it wasn't
Tyrian culture, a Tyrian culture, motherfucking ended damn near 40,000 years ago. Them niggas was already overlapped by Ibero-Maurutian culture. The last remnants of them niggas was the motherfucking what's the Takari, what them niggas they just found the women burials. Them is the last remnants of them. Them
Is
niggas they
haplogroup
was
E
mixed up
older
by
than
then.
40,000 years ago?
Bro, a Tyrian culture is older than that, bro. A Tyrians
No,
go
I
back
got you. I asked you, was
100,000
haplogroup
years.
E older than that?
Haplogroup E is about what 50, like what I say
Okay,
haplogroup
so it's
E
older than
itself
that,
about
right?
50,000 years ago. Yeah, but that shit was in motherfucking ground the horn and shit.
It was only around the Horn. It wasn't you can't find it in Central and Western Asia.
You said Central and Western Asia.
Yeah, in my presentation, I brought up the paper, Basil L. Carrier's paper that showed that there's strong evidence that haplogroup E back migrated into Africa 70,000 years ago. I think
That's
there's multiple
outdated,
papers
bro. That's
out.
outdated. It's
Okay,
2018.
what paper would you bring up that's more recent that
Hold on,
pushes your perspective?
hold on, hold on. Got it right here. Hold on. Haplogroup.
The boy Googling or Chat GPT in him
No,
answer
I ain't
real
chat
quick.
GPT nothing. I'm going through my sources, nigga. ain't Googling shit.
Well, if you the source, you should know the name. What's the name of the source? You can pull it up as you
Bro, you know
tell
how
me.
many PDFs I got in my fucking phone, bro? I got a whole library, nigga. What the fuck you talking about?
Okay, so we gonna have to wait for you to go through a library to get an answer.
Hold on. Cause I gotta tell you the source, nigga. You going off the 2019 source. Where it say you going off the Cabria source. If you look at the Habir source, 2019, where it talk about the study proposed that an African origin for haplogroup E is based on the analysis of Y chromosome phylogenetic structure haplogroup divergence time and is recently discovered haplogroup DO found in three Nigerians. An additional branch of DE lineage diverged early from D. The authors support an African origins for DE and the immigration of the haplogroup C, D, FT out of Africa around 50,000 years to 81,000. When they say the early divergence dates found in study of DE, E, and DO all dated to about 71 to 76 KYA, which are determined to predate the migration out of Africa of the ancestors of Eurasians, dates to 50 to 60,000. Are also considered by authors to support an African origin for those haplogroups. Not no back migration from out of Asia. That's the 2019 shit. They debunked that in 2009. I mean 2000.
Wait, is that a debunking or is that a different model?
I say
Because
it's been
that's the
debunked,
issue
bro.
we have. Wait, let me hold it real quick. The issue we have is you have two models, competing models that are competing with each other, right? So there's gonna be arguments for both sides of the model that's put up, right? The distinguishing.
So you going with the European?
Wait a minute,
You
it ain't
going with
no.
the
Wait a minute,
Eurasian
wait a minute.
shit?
Both. It ain't no European shit.
So
They
you
said
say
that a minute ago. It ain't no European shit.
claiming
Now
he come
suddenly it's
out of
European
Eurasia
shit.
instead
You
of
gotta make.
Africa
You
though.
gotta make up your
So you
mind whether you're gonna be against the argument against European
no, I'm saying
scholars or for it.
that's
You
not what
gotta
I'm
pick.
talking about. I'm saying you agree
Okay.
that E come out of Eurasia. That's what you agree with.
Yeah, and I'm about to give my reasoning for it. The reasoning for it is because of the evidence of where the
So
gap
E
insertion took place.
so E is Beige Eurasian. So you saying E is Beige Eurasian? You saying niggas with E markers come
We
out of
don't we don't we
Asia?
don't know exactly what basal
Man,
Eurasian
that
was, but I
bullshit,
think
man.
it's most likely would be E if there's anything. Um, but the argument is mainly put by the other paper, right, proponent, because the original argument was put forth for African origin because they found DE in Nigeria, but
It's
amongst
like the
two
same
people.
thing. It's like the same thing with L3. L3 come
Look,
out of East
I got
Africa,
I
bro.
got
Don't
you.
come
Look,
out
let
of
me let me let me
don't
let me
come
make my
out
point
of
real
Asia.
quick, bro. Look, we let you look for and read what you want to. Let me make my point. So the original argument was for an out of Africa origin was because they found DE in Nigeria. They found two samples of DE in Nigeria. The
Yeah,
new
DO.
paper came.
It's a basal
I got
D.
you. Yeah. And the new paper came out where they're finding basal DE in Tibet, right? And that are of a more basal clay than what's found in Africa. So if the original argument is saying because it's more basal and found in Africa, therefore it's out of Africa, why wouldn't if we find a more basal lineage in Europe, I mean not in Europe, in Asia, Central Asia, why wouldn't we go with the Central Asian origin? So it's about competing models. It ain't about one side being right or wrong. None of this is definitive. It's all scholarly speculation, I guess we can say. It's not definitive. They're just models. Right? I mean, we have this all over academia, competing models. It doesn't make one side pseudo and the other side, you know what I'm saying, the
I ain't saying
ultimate
the pseudo.
authority.
I'm saying that shit been overturned, nigga.
And it wasn't overturned. It's just a new argument for the other competing model. They saw that paper and they responded. What are they supposed to do? Sit
But
on
they
their
ain't
fingers
respond
and
back.
not respond?
It ain't shit. They ain't respond back though.
Why
I'm going
should
with the
you?
latest. I'm going with the
There's
latest. I'm
nothing.
going with the latest.
There was
I'm
nothing
going.
they put in there that refuted the argument. They just further emphasized the points of the older argument. So why would I have to put up a new paper if they ain't put up nothing new to refute? It just
And then too, just because you found a basal marker somewhere else don't mean that what's where the older one come from. Sometimes the motherfucker a mutation will just get carried on and get overlapped and just still remain into modern times. This ain't same way A00 was still among the Cameroonian dude because that marker went through a bottleneck.
yeah, exactly. But I can agree that that doesn't necessitate one or the other. So that's why I'm saying it's just competing models. That's why I'm not arguing that you pseudo because you support an African uh um expansion while I support a Central Asian expansion. I'm not calling you pseudo for that reason because I understand they're just competing models.
But you know about it being paraphyletic though. Paraphyletic means a basal marker can still exist with the younger markers through bottleneck reduction.
Yeah, it can still exist. That's why we can still find basal DEs in not only Nigeria but also Tibet. Still existing today.
Same like with the argument with L3 marker. You got basal N in North Africa and M in North Africa. And that the latest claim with that saying L3 come out of East Africa.
The claim there's no argument whether basal L3 comes out of East Africa. I think we all agree that it comes out of East Africa. The question is where M and N splits. And again, it's another competing model thing. One will say it splits in Central Asia because we find a lot of N and M throughout Asia, even back migrating into North Africa. Just like they argue with D and E. We find a lot of E across Central Asia into North Africa, along with sparse, remnants of D going across there as well. So it's like if D is highly centralized in East Asia and very sparse as we go into Africa, but D is highly centralized in Africa and sparse in the East Asia, then the best hypothesis is to meet them in the middle, the origin somewhere in the middle.
Hey, bro, at the end of the day, bro, you trying to connect this shit to some biblical shit, and that's all wrong anyway, bro. You trying to connect yourself to some Hebrews, bro. That shit don't have to do nothing to do with no motherfucking Bible. You know it don't.
I disagree. The Bible makes claims about common ancestry of all human
Man, them
males.
niggas didn't know nothing about no damn DNA.
Look, they don't have to know about I know about DNA today, right? So if they
But
make
most of
claims,
them motherfuckers was made up. Went on Abraham.
I got you. I got you. If they make claims that can be validated through modern methodology, proven false, true or false through modern methodology, as if I'm going to be a proponent of this book in any way, I should put it to the test. And when I put it to the test, I find that there is a common male ancestor for all European peoples, all peoples we would call, Central Asian or North African, and for indigenous Nilotic and Pygmies peoples. They all got common ancestors. They go back to 3 common ancestral lineages, just like the Bible talks about. So all I'm doing is applying
Bro,
science
motherfuckers in the Bible
to
didn't
the
even know
origin
shit about
of the
them
Bible.
people, bro. All they knew about is that little map that you see in the Bible. They ain't know nothing about no pygmies, about no Nilotic, none of that shit, bro.
And where does Pygmies originate at, sir? Where do they
They from
originate? In Northeast Africa.
no, they
So
don't
that's
come from no
including
Northeast Africa. They don't come from
the
Northeast
earth.
Africa. They come from
Yes,
East
they.
Central Africa, bro.
Okay,
No,
watch
they
this.
don't,
Watch
bro.
this. The god Bass, right? Bass, which is a pygmy, is based on what? Pygmies.
Bro, Bass ain't no bro. Bass ain't no pygmy.
That little bitty bass ain't a pygmy, bro.
Nah.
All right, that's
They
your
don't got shit to
opinion.
do. They don't got shit to do with no pygmy. And then
I,
plus
I,
the
I would
pygmy,
argue bass.
bro. Hold on. Matter of fact, the pygmies weren't even always short stature. When they was in East Africa, that's a recent mutation from being in dense forests.
That
From,
mutation 55,000 years ago. You consider that
bro.
recent?
No, the pig, bro. The ancestors of modern day pygmies migrated through them lakes through a southern route, according to Christopher Eric, through a southern route 30,000 years ago, bro. That mutation that make them shorter, that's a mutation for living in dense forests and the
I'm not.
calcium
I'm not
intake, bro.
arguing. I'm not
The
arguing
ancestor wasn't even
their
short.
height.
The ancestor wasn't even short stature. But you just said
I'm.
Bass was a
That's not a
pygmy from Northeast Africa. You said
look.
they came
Number
from
one,
Northeast
we have.
Africa. And you
Hold on. We have short stature people all over the globe that carry haplogroup A. All over. We can find them in ancient Europe. We can find them in the Near East. We can find them all over. But the pygmies weren't isolated to Africa. Let's start there. They weren't
Bro,
isolated.
nah, bro.
We find all of
No,
this.
that's
But
bro. Them
the
people don't got
argument ain't
A.
about height.
The
Hold
pygmies
up.
don't
The
got A.
argument
They got B. They got They got
you just
BM60, bro. What are you talking about?
you just want to argue at this point. The argument isn't about height.
You're wrong, bro. And the
I'm
pygmies,
trying to make a point, and you're cutting me off in the middle of it, so you're taking pieces of the point.
The short
I know
stature
you
people
want to be
get
right so bad because you losing at every
you
point.
just wrong as a motherfucker,
Calm
bro.
down.
The short
The
stature
debate
people
ain't
in
about
Southeast
height.
Asia
It's
don't
about
got nothing to
descent.
do with no African pygmy. They totally
It's
different.
about
They got totally
descent.
different Y chromosome. That's a
Got
mutation from
argument is about this.
living in small
Bro, you just
motherfucking
yelling.
dense forests, bro.
Okay, got you. The argument ain't about height. The argument is about descent and Y
Why you
chromosomes.
calling them?
That's
Why
what
you
the
calling
argument.
them pygmies though? You call you
Because that's the name
it
of
is.
the peoples.
That's
The
not.
new
They call it Batois.
the people
That's
today are
they
called pygmies. Okay,
Batois, bro.
anybody. Okay, cool. I'm not finna argue with him about a common classification. Anybody can Google and see what a damn pygmy is. Anybody can do that. He just wants to
Yeah, it was a
argue.
derogatory. It's a
That's
derogatory
highly
term.
effeminate to just argue for no reason.
It's a derogatory, bro. You making up
Oh,
words and
okay,
shit, bro. You don't know
hey,
what the fuck
cool.
you talking.
You can feel like any scientific term you don't like is derogatory. That's fine, but it is a literal scientific term used to categorize peoples. And for you to just harp and cry about anytime people use a scientific term, to me is ridiculous. You just being combative. Even when you hold up, let me make my points I was trying to make earlier before you just became.
Some studies suggest that it could be
I
short
know
stature
you
could be
just want to
related to
yell, but I'm just gonna talk
low
over you at this point.
ultraviolet light.
The whole argument is about
low
common
ultraviolet
descent.
light
What
and
is your
rainforest.
issue with the common ancestry
might
with
been that
haplogroup
the
A and B?
relative little vitamin D can be made in
What
human
is your
skin,
issue with the common
thereby
ancestry of
limiting
A and B?
calcium intake from the diet or bone growth into maintenance leading of evolution
You're
small
moving the
skeletal size.
goalpost to something that's not even being
Other
argued.
other explanations include lack of food in rainforests. Ain't nobody moving no goalposts. You just use
Who
them
made
fucking
the
pseudo
argument
ass
about
tactics.
pygmy? Who made the argument about height? My argument is about ancestry. Been about ancestry the whole time. I made a whole presentation
If
about
it's about
Y
height,
chromosomes and mitochondrial chromosomes, and you want to try to move the goalpost to height, nigga. This is what you.
all
Hey,
over
this
the
is what
world. That ain't
pseudo
true, bro.
killers do.
It ain't true, bro.
Every time a pseudo killer comes around,
Nah,
they
bro.
spaz out. You prove them wrong on something, they move the
Because you
goalpost.
pseudo and you think you right. You don't know the fucking. You don't study enough.
You are making it about height
Line
when the
some
argument is
shit
about
up with some
Y
mythological
chromosomes. Okay, let me ask you this. All right, let me pull this up real quick. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. Do you know where this location is? Let me pull it up on my screen real quick from my presentation, because this is where what I find extremely pseudo.
Talking about some pygmies in Europe, bro. You crazy, man. That's some pseudo ass shit.
Wait a minute. Do you want me to give you evidence of haplogroup A in Europe and evidence from authors like John Mackey, who talks about the ancient short
They don't mean
black,
that was pygmies, bro.
ancient short black peoples that lived in Europe? Come on, man. I don't this, and then we can find haplogroups to align with it. So I mean, I don't even see this. But where is Malawi? Do you know where that is, sir?
Bro, that's in Southeast Africa, bro. Fuck you talking about where I know where it's at? You don't think I'm stupid?
Yeah, I have to ask. So you know where Malawi is. Cool.
Bro, I'm very well down on geography, nigga.
Got you. Let's see.
Them eastern Batois.
Got you. Where's Tanzania at?
Southeast Africa. The fuck?
North. Wait, I would say more central than that, but you want to say it's Southeast
East Africa, bro. Bro, motherfucking Tanzania is up under motherfucking Kenya, nigga. What you talking about?
Yeah,
Tanzania is
that's
below
what I'm saying.
Kenya.
That's why I said.
That's
why I said more
Southeast Africa. That's Southeast, bro. Tanzania touches it touches the eastern coast.
I know. I'm saying between Northeast Africa and South Africa, where we just went to Malawi. I was saying that it's more centered there because it's right above Malawi. right beneath Kenya and by Uganda and stuff, right next door to the the Republic of Congo, which is literal Central Africa. So that's why I'm saying it's in a centralized location. I don't mean like it's not on the eastern. The eastern coast of Africa, which puts it in a position that's more centralized to Northeast Africa and South Africa. I'm saying throughout this whole region, it's where they're finding the quote unquote pygmy people's ancestry and DNA. So that's all I'm saying. Some of the most ancient specimens we find is throughout that region. It's all over Africa.
Yeah, and
And wait a minute, you even admitted. Wait a minute, let me say one more thing, and you can speak, bro. Let me say one more thing.
The closest
You even
relatives,
admitted they didn't get
the
to the
closest
region to
relatives-
30,000 years ago.
That's where they moved. They moved out from east and they moved to
Thank
west.
you, and that's what. Okay, so the
West
origin
African
was in the east,
West African hunter gatherers,
but the origin was
and
in the
all of them
east,
was a
like I
short
said.
stature either. All of them was short stature either. That's a more recent,
I agree with that.
motherfucking mutation.
I never argued that
Them
all of them.
motherfuckers share the same. Motherfuckers share the same Y chromosome with the Hadza people, and they ain't short stature.
I know, and that's why I didn't make that point that all of them was a short stature. You're making that point, and trying to push
And then
it on
some
me.
of them share certain markers, and then the ones the people that's up north. A lot of them people got A and B markers, and a lot of Nilo-Saharan population.
I agree.
They got A's and B's.
That's why I know it originates from that region. Because you had certain times in the history after the Ice Age where certain parts were uninhabitable by certain people. That's why when they first went into the region, they had the bottleneck that they had and the malnutrition issues they had because that region wasn't very inhabitable for humans. They had to figure out ways of surviving in that region, which caused that mutation. So the people they came from a different region in the world, and I'm just highlighting that region is in the same region that quote unquote the biblical narrative quote unquote claims Hamites went to. Now, whether Ham is a real person or not is beyond the argument. Oral traditions don't mean that every person is a literal person.
When the Bible say the Hamites went down there, what part of the Bible say
right after the Great Flood?
Where does it say that? Where does it mention that at? Where does it mention that at?
In Genesis 10, Table of Nations, when it says that they went into areas like Egypt, Cush, Punt, and the other one was Canaan.
Bro, that's Northeast Africa, bro. That's not Southeast Africa.
That's fine. My point was Northeast Africa.
You said Tanzania. You said Tanzania and Malawi, bro.
Yeah,
that ain't Northeast Africa. That's Southeast Africa.
These are peoples that migrated into different areas. I don't understand the point,
bro. If anything, bro,
the whole point of the biblical narrative. Hold on. Let me make the point real quick.
Hamites will be Cushitic.
The whole point of the biblical narrative is to give a region.
Is
to give a region of the world that people went to. That doesn't mean that
they didn't know about their region.
No,
them niggas didn't know about their region.
Let's say they didn't. Let's just say they didn't. They still gave a region of the world that people went to, and as long as people,
Northeast Africa.
I got you.
Them Hamites to them niggas was
Tanzania close to Northeast Africa.
Is Tanzania Afro-Asiatic speakers?
Is Tanzania not literally right south of Northeast Africa? Literally?
No, it's not.
Okay,
it's right up under the Kenya.
Okay, Kenya is like what are we talking about?
It's deeper south.
Okay, look.
It's deeper south.
Let me pull up.
Bro, when they was talking about them motherfucking Hamites, bro, they talking about Cushitic people, bro. They talking about Cushitic niggas and motherfucking Afro-Asiatic, dark-skinned Afro-Asiatic speakers, bro.
Okay.
They ain't talking about no motherfucking. They ain't talking about no motherfucking Tanzania and Kenya and all down there.
Got you. But you just mentioned a moment ago that Nilo-Saharan people includes haplogroup A and haplogroup B, right?
Yeah, they do. But what they got?
That is the whole argument I'm making. Okay, thank you. So my whole argument was
it don't have nothing to do with it. You can't even tie that shit into it, bro.
Got you. Let me make.
You can't tie that shit into no Bible.
I know, because you don't like something, don't mean you can't do it. No, your whole thing is I don't like it.
It don't mean I don't like it. It's wrong.
That ain't the way that works.
It's wrong, bro.
If I look
It
at it,
ain't
I
because I
got
don't
you,
like
cool,
it.
Gullah.
It's wrong, nigga.
Gullah,
You
you
trying to
don't have
line
to
shit up that
spaz
don't
out. You
exist.
said it's wrong 5 times, bro. You
Ain't
said it's
nobody
wrong 5. That's
spazzing
your
out,
feelings.
nigga.
Then why you got to keep repeating yourself and not let me speak?
Cause you think
It's like you don't.
niggas got
It's like
cars.
it's
You
like
think
you
niggas
want
got
people
cars
to
and shit.
just
You
hear
think
you and
niggas got
believe
cars and
you.
shit in the ancient world and shit.
I got you. Cool. Now my whole argument was that the Hamites were descendants of haplogroups A and B. That was my whole argument.
Where they
So
say
if
that in the
you
Bible? Where they say that in the Bible?
anyway, my whole argument was that, and it's based on the Nilotic people being the first peoples in the regions of Northeast Africa, and their haplogroups being haplogroups A and B. That's what it's all based on. So if they encompass them, and that Y chromosome in my model is encompassing that, then that means anybody that descends from haplogroup A and
Who would
B
know about that when they
fall
wrote the
within
Bible, bro?
Ham.
Who the fuck would know about that when they wrote the Bible?
They
They
did
didn't know
because
that.
they
They didn't
said
know the history that damn deep.
they knew the history of common. They knew what common
And the Nilo
ancestry
Saharians
was.
ain't the only
Did they
Africans
know
in
what
the area.
common
You got
ancestry was?
Cushitic people ain't Nilo Saharians. Them Afro-Asiatic
Did they
people
know
ain't
what?
Nilo Saharians. They come off of Amadic
No,
like
no one's
people.
making that. No one's
They
making that
related.
argument.
They related to them, but
Quit
you had
trying to
E
make
markers.
arguments I'm
You had
not making.
E3B. You had E3B markers already
See,
existed.
now you bringing up E3B. That ain't an argument that we own right now. We on A and B, and that's it. No, nothing else. We ain't talking about nothing else.
A and B
A and
wouldn't even
B.
have nothing to do. A and B, if anything,
Wait a minute. You said.
the
Wait a minute.
motherfucking
You
Hamites
said how
would
did
have
I?
had E3B. They would have had
Got you.
E3B if any damn thing. It wouldn't
Well,
have them
you
damn A. You stretching it. You stretching shit.
okay? So you just admitted a moment ago that the Nilo-Saharan
Bro,
people,
look, bro, who are the sons of Ham? What the
the
Bible say the sons of
Nilo-Saharan
Ham are?
people, the
No, they
Nilo-Saharan
don't.
people.
No, they don't. They
Okay,
say
so who are the original people of Cush and Egypt?
you said what?
Who are the original peoples of Ethiopia and Egypt?
Cushitic people. Amadic like people. Not
Nilo-Saharans?
Nilo-Saharians. No.
Oh, okay. So who are okay?
Nilo-Saharians, not the Nilo-Saharan
Watch this.
heartland
Watch this.
is the southern middle
Uh-huh.
Nile. When you get into
Where's
Kush,
the southern middle Nile at?
Kush is a mixture. Matter of fact, Kush is
Where's
the
the
northern.
southern middle
Hold
Nile
on,
at?
let me finish. The Cushitic
Man,
area,
this is becoming
which
ridiculous.
is northern, the northern middle Nile, which more like the northern middle Nile part. That would be a combined thing of Nilo-Saharians and Cushitic populations. The Beja type people, C group
The
niggas wasn't
northern middle Nile is
Nilo-Saharians.
in Sudan, right?
Bro, the Sudan don't just have Nilo-Saharians. They got different Africans there. They
That's
got
modern.
Nilo-Saharians
We're not talking about
and they got
modern day
Cushitic
populations.
people.
We're
They
talking
got
about
Cushitic.
ancient
No,
populations.
the them ancient population. They had Cushitic people there too.
Okay, so let's deal with this real quick.
They would have had
There is,
Afro-Asiatic people there too,
there
meeting
is.
up with
Wait a minute.
different
Let's
groups.
be clear.
The
Wait.
Cushitic
Let's
people,
be
the
clear.
Cushitic,
There is no issue with
bro.
overlapping. Let's be clear. There's no issue with overlapping. If anyone pulled up a
Bro, the
biblical
Nile
table of
Sahara, bro.
nations,
When you get
hold up real
the
quick.
more north you get, the more north you
Bro,
get, the Nile Saharas become more
you
of a
come up here to
minority, bro.
contend. Are you coming up here to preach or contend against my points?
I
Because
come
right
here
now
to
you're
tell the
just
real
preaching.
information. I come here to tell the real
No,
information,
you're
not no
just
biblical
preaching right
shit.
now.
You up here Bible thumping. You
Got
preaching,
got.
nigga. You Bible thumping, nigga. You
I
preaching. You
haven't brought
Bible
up one. I haven't mentioned one Bible verse
bro.
yet.
You the one
Everything
that's
I've
preaching. You
mentioned is
bringing up Ham, Shem, and Jephthah. You the preacher.
so what? That's called an oral tradition. I'm showing how
Ain't no oral tradition,
scholars.
bro. Get out of here, bro. There ain't no
I'm
fucking oral.
showing how scholars
Bro. How you
can
talking about some oral
analyze
tradition?
oral
That's in the
traditions,
Bible,
and you
nigga. You talking
spaz.
about a Bible, nigga?
Look,
Bible
you
ain't
doing
oral,
it
nigga. That's
again.
written down. That's
Why
written
you
down,
can't
nigga.
let
You
me
fucking
talk?
talking about?
Why you can't let me
You want
talk
some
without you
oral
talking over
tradition,
me?
nigga? That's a
Why
biblical
you can't
narrative,
let me
nigga.
talk without you talking
That
over
shit
me
been
like a
written,
little schoolgirl?
nigga. Genesis is fucking.
Hey,
Nigga, Genesis is motherfucking
somebody
Greek,
get this
nigga.
man
What you
a
talking
bib,
about?
man. He crying and bleeding out right here
Ain't
on the
nobody
camera.
crying, nigga.
Everybody
Ain't nobody crying,
crying.
nigga. That's that pseudo method. That's
Then
that
why you
pseudo
can't let
method.
the
You say
people
niggas
talk?
crying when you niggas getting
Why
on
you
your head,
can't let
nigga.
people
Ain't nobody
talk? Why you
crying,
gotta
nigga.
talk over
That's that
first as soon
pseudo
as they
method.
bring out a
That's that
counterpoint?
pseudo method, bro. That ain't the
Got you.
scientific method. That's the
I,
pseudo
hey,
method.
Hey, I'm done
hey,
arguing with him, bro. I ain't got nothing else to
it's
say to him.
going down.
That's that
It's
pseudo
going.
method. Niggas say
All right,
nigga crying when they get that pseudo.
hold up. It's going down on Paradigm Shift, man. We got Uncle Seb, pseudo killers going up against Dr. Too Sweet. It is going down. So the debate starts at 8:15. We about to redirect the traffic over there to Paradigm Shift. Shout out to Uncle DMG. Shout out to both of the Craigs. It is going down. Pseudo Killer's gonna be in the building. Gonna have everybody in the building. Dr. Too Sweet gonna have her fans in the building. Hey man, I want to see a good debate tonight from both parties, and we're gonna get to it. Hey, Uncle James Cassel, appreciate you for this presentation, man. You know they gonna make videos and you gonna be a superstar and motherfuckers gonna be hitting up your DM like, nigga, what's your name, nigga? What's your name? You did the what?
Already.
So yeah, man, just know what I'm saying, stay focused, and man, I appreciate that. I'm gonna have you on more.
I appreciate you, man. Nothing but love, and I also appreciate the brother from Pseudo Killers coming up and bringing up his contentions, man. Ain't nothing wrong with being pressed on your information. And with that, like the brother said, we're gonna shift the paradigm shift for the debate, man. Appreciate it. Much love to everybody.
Hey Gullah, I appreciate you coming on and trying to get in the ring, man. One day you gonna have to get in the ring. You just said Jesus ain't exist. I think that's a good topic between you and James, but we'll have a show about it.
All right.